Guardiola never used to stand in players' ways, especially senior ones that had been long-serving and loyal to the club. But Enzo Maresca's new, and of course, if it's his say, he'll go to his board and say, keep him. If he doesn't renew, we'll let him leave on a free transfer in 2027. And now Barca are going to accelerate and bid, and they have full player buy-in. So Rodri wants Barcelona over Real Madrid, and I think there's a strong chance that this one happens. Man City are going to add another midfielder. Bouadi advanced talks. They've got other targets as well. Elliot Anderson has already come in. And in essence, it's whether City say Rodri deserves this move and follow that Pep Guardiola approach, or if they double down and say Enzo Maresca doesn't want him to leave, so we're going to make it really difficult.
talkSPORT Sports Update with NordVPN. Connect and protect your online traffic with our most advanced VPN.
Very good morning. You're listening to talkSPORT here with your sports headlines. I'm Amelia Baltrao. UEFA, CONCACAF and the AFC are trying to keep pressure on Gianni Infantino by writing an open letter to quote the football family. They insist that they're still not happy with the FIFA president, saying when trust is broken through deception, when an individual places himself above the collective that entrusted him with authority, that duty has been abandoned. Senior football correspondent Ben Jacobs has more.
talkSPORT understands the federations want Gianni Infantino to resign and are giving him the chance to do so with some dignity, and the three confederations have begun preliminary discussions about the possibility of organising competitions among themselves.
Barcelona are feeling optimistic about signing Rodri. Spanish sources have told talkSPORT positive talks took place this weekend. Everton and Crystal Palace are progressing on a swap deal involving Dwight McNeil and Brennan Johnson. It's a straight exchange of the players, so no additional money, and medicals could be taking place as early as today. Luca Digne has completed his move from Aston Villa to PSG. Don't forget, all transfer lines are on talksport.com. Now, Andoni Iraola is worried his Liverpool players aren't fit enough to play his style of football when the Premier League returns. It's after the Reds lost to Monaco, throwing away a 2-goal lead for the second match in a row. The Telegraph's Merseyside correspondent Dom King thinks he needs more bodies through the door.
I don't think Liverpool have got enough players. I don't think they've got enough quality options for him. The start of the 11 could be good, but I'm not sure the squad depth at the moment is as it should be. And I think Liverpool have got an awful lot of work to do before the transfer window closes.
And Jose Mourinho has revealed he signed a contract to succeed Sir Alex Ferguson as Manchester United manager in 2013, only to tearfully back out on the deal and return to Chelsea. He opened up on the dramatic tale during his new Netflix documentary.
talkSPORT News.
One of the most wanted men in the world has appeared in court in Dublin, and more regions across England are expected to officially be declared in a drought later. Sinead has more in half an hour.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. Heatwave outside, oven inside. Stay cool this summer with a free aircon check. Book online or visit your local QuickFit today.
Dry and warm for most of us today, with some patchy clouds and sunny spells. A few showers possible in the north-east of Scotland.
Good morning, you're listening to White and Jordan with me, Max Scott, alongside Peterborough Chairman Darragh MacAnthony. In for Jim and Simon this morning. We've got a very busy show for you coming up. For the second time, Liverpool squandered a 2-goal pre-season lead, this time at the hands of Monaco. And Andoni Iraola says they simply cannot sustain the levels for 90 minutes. Are these early warning signs or just pre-season teething problems? Liverpool fans, we want to hear from you. 03717 223344. Meanwhile, Brandon Williams has spoken out about his struggles as a young professional at one of the world's biggest clubs. So with Darragh in the studio, we're going to ask whether there's enough support for young pros in the game. Speaking of Manchester United, though, Marcus Rashford returned to his boyhood club at the weekend. Manchester United fans, does he have a future under Michael Carrick? Will you welcome him back with open arms? As well, do owners listen to fan forums, or is it just a thankless, pointless task from fans getting millionaires to listen to the concerns of match-going fans? At what point do owners question their own managerial appointments? And we'll get the very latest from the transfer window with Ben Jacobs. We want to hear from you this morning. Liverpool fans, pick up the phone. We're starting with you. What do you make of your club at the minute in pre-season? Give us a call. Send us a WhatsApp voice note on 03717 223344 with your questions. So much to get stuck into this morning here on Scott and McAnthony.
100% engagement.
Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
Remember, as well as listening to us, you can watch us on YouTube, LG channels, Prime TV, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, and the whole lot. Wherever you watch, we are there. But just in the last hour, as you heard in Amelia's bulletin, the presidents of UEFA, CONCACAF and the Asian Confederations have written an open letter accusing Gianni Infantino of deception. The letter states, when trust is broken through deception, when an individual places himself above the collective that entrusted him with authority, that duty has been abandoned. For the full statement and more reaction, head over to the website talksport.com. Now, Darragh MacAnthony is alongside me. How was your weekend, mate?
It was good, yeah. Football was back. That was nice. Little trip down to Bristol.
Little win
Beautiful day inside. Yeah, it was lovely. We haven't won in the first round of the Cup for a long time, so it was always nice. I always enjoyed going to Bristol Rovers, and great club. And interesting day.
And despite the naysayers questioning maybe some transfer business or lack
of. Look,
great win for Luke Williams.
It was brilliant, but that's a testament to the gaffer, the players. And I can't disagree with all the naysayers. They're right. We are short. A bit like Liverpool, a bit like every single club in the country. Everyone's short of a few players. It's just that kind of window. So we have a great group of lads. I want to help them. You know, my job now for the next 2.5 weeks is to make sure by the time we finish the window we're stronger and they get some help, because they ran their backsides off on Saturday, and we had a good few of our academy players involved, which always fills me with pride. I love that, 3 of them started the game, a couple of teenagers, and that's the way it should be. But it was a good game, and after 60 minutes, I think we had 6 players with cramp. Yeah, you always laugh when you see that, but you just know the heat, the pre-season, the amount of running around, and there was some good results in the Cup. It was an interesting thing.
Well, from one club close to your heart in the posh to another in Liverpool, from one club in Luke Williams, who you tell me, by the way, is incredible. The intensity in pre-season's there to see.
Oh, God, yeah.
Same with Andoni Iraola.
Yeah.
Let's talk about his first match in charge at a packed-out Anfield. It ended in a 3-2 defeat to Monaco. As I say, sellout crowd, a lovely sort of minute's applause for Kev Keegan. We're, of course, going to expect to see that in the opening game between Liverpool and Newcastle, expecting some, emotional scenes there. But they've gone 2-0 up again, like they did against Leeds. They've lost 3-2. Iraola did make a string of substitutions, and I think maybe demonstrates a little bit of a lack of maybe strength in depth at the club. But he spoke to LFC TV after the match and claimed his squad cannot last, at this moment, a full 90 minutes.
Quite similar to the game we played against Leeds, no? I think we played a really good first half, especially first 30 minutes. But right now, probably, we don't have much more in terms of the level required, to play like this. I think we are right now, especially considering, we won the first 2 games, but the last 2, we cannot sustain the level that we want for all the game. As soon as we've made some changes, players start to get tired, we cannot sustain that level. So we have work to do.
Andoni Iraola saying we cannot sustain the levels. Darragh, as an owner, would that frustrate you?
No.
If so early on a manager's coming out saying that?
No, not at all. Look, he's dealing with a lot. He's dealing with a pre-season full of players that aren't all together yet. There's still some coming back, I think, who are late from the World Cup. Some just came back. It's a mix and match. You've got academy players. They haven't finished their recruitment. It's 2 weeks, I think, till the Premier League starts. 2 weeks is a long time in pre-season to get players fit. And I dare say I'll see a different Liverpool by the time the season kicks off. And it's far too early for people to be crying out over losing to Leeds in America, losing obviously on in the match of the weekend. I watched it, and they were very good in patches. Barry Fry once said to me, pay no attention to pre-season. You know, we once got promoted to the Championship, pretty much lost 5 of our 7 pre-season games, thought we were going to go down with the lowest total ever, and ended up staying up in the Championship for the first time in years. So pre-season is all about minutes. It's about the intensity in your legs.
Yep.
It's about keeping players fit, bringing players back from injury.
Yep.
There's a lot of moving parts Ariola's got to deal with. And, you know, somebody said to me out there, well, you know, Liverpool don't have a style, and the guy hasn't even played a competitive game yet. So it's going to take a minute, and I just think we all need to calm down on that.
Liverpool fans, we want to hear from you. 03717223344.
But I will say before you get into that, defensively we should worry, because they were the same old problems there.
Well, this is what we want to ask fans about. Are there early warning signs for fans? And I don't want to be guilty of jumping on a pre-season game, because you're absolutely right. I went and watched Forest lose 4-1 against Sporting,
it's irrelevant,
who were a week away from the start of their season. And so in that sense, it's irrelevant. But there must be certain things that you see. It can't all just be free reign, make as many mistakes.
No.
At what point, or what do you need to see to be concerned in pre-season?
Yeah, I mean, you saw things again at the weekend. Set-piece goals conceded. You know, that was a real issue for Liverpool last year. The winner was based for Monaco. It was a set-piece again. Somebody not picking up a player who's got a free header from 3 yards out. That happened too often last year. Yeah. Van Dijk making a mistake again, being clumsy. You know, he's not often clumsy, but again, penalty. There were things there. You've got midfielders playing at centre-back. So look, it was very, you know, messy defensively. There were a lot of great points attacking-wise. Some of the young players did really well. But defensively, would give you anxiety watching the last 2 games.
Yeah.
As much as it's pre-season, you just see it and go, well, you've got wingers playing at right back, you've got midfielders playing at centre back. It's a mismatch at the moment that's uncomfortable to watch. Now, I know they're signing the Barcelona guy. You know, there's going to be some strength coming in, players coming back, but they're the things you want to see fixed. And I don't like seeing my team giving away set-piece goals again. That was a big problem for us last year.
Is there an element where maybe Iraola is trying to manage expectations a little bit? Because I would imagine, and this is just a hypothesis, I've got nothing to go on, but I'd imagine he's a little bit disappointed that they've not been able to move as quick in the transfer window. We've spoken at length about the reasons why that might be, so it can't necessarily be this massive stick we beat Liverpool with. Yeah. But do you think there's an element in his post-match comments where he's trying to maybe temper expectations because he doesn't necessarily have the squad that he might have thought he would?
No, I think he's a very calm. He's a bit like my manager. My manager's a real calm, cool, collected dude.
Yeah.
You know, who'll never complain about anything. Our fans are begging for him to complain about the lack of signings. You know what I mean? And he's not built that way. He won't have excuses for losing football games. Give him 24 players. He's going to work hard to win games. I think Ariola's very similar to that. That's why he's highly coveted during the summer. What he did at Bournemouth. I think he's a very low maintenance manager in that way. Other managers can be different, where they'll use press conferences constantly to say, well, we're short and we need this and that. I watched a lot.
But surely that just
yesterday.
drives a wedge in the relationship.
Right, and that causes an issue, particularly when you're new and you're through the door of the club. Liverpool would have done their due diligence to know what type of guy they were getting. He was a low maintenance manager who they will get players for him and he will improve them. What we might have to do as Liverpool fans is wait a minute, because at Bournemouth it was a bit of a slow start. Yeah. And that's just getting across his stress testing he does to the players. When I found out about their training last summer, they stressed the players to high level in training. They train like they play matches. So what we might see in August and a little bit of September, the results we won't love, but then as they kick on towards the end of September onwards, we'll fly. And that happened when he was at Bournemouth. I think they won for the first 8-9 games under him. So it just takes a minute.
Yeah. Jack's got in touch, 81089. He says, we Liverpool are clearly short in a couple of positions, but it's pre-season. We haven't had all our players available before because of World Cup and other things. It's going to take time for the players to adapt to the higher intensity style implemented by Iraola. Now, Jack said it there, you've said it, Liverpool fans are crying out for more signings. Sure. We understand that. I wonder if, because last season was so bad, it was bad by Liverpool
their standards as champions, it was bad.
Are Liverpool still, have they lost the appeal as a club that they had under Klopp?
No. Liverpool's one of the biggest football clubs in the world. With all due respect.
Of course it still is.
Yeah.
But right now, for where they're at.
I saw a comment the other day about, Barcola would choose Arsenal over Liverpool. Let's get real for a second. Liverpool's the most decorated club. in England.
Don't disagree with you.
And if they want to sign somebody and they have the money, that player will go to Liverpool.
I don't disagree with you, but just to look back over the past few seasons, Yan Diomande was heavily linked to move to Anfield, obviously during Real Madrid. We saw last season Mark Gahey heavily linked for a long time to Anfield, goes to Pep Guardiola's
It's not that he chose Man City over us. We didn't come up with the money to buy him.
Martin Zubamendi was courted for a long time, then went to Arsenal. So far this season, you've got Jeremy Jacquet from Rennes, and then you've got Victor Munoz from Osasuna. Obviously, Araujo's on his way, Barcelona captain, high-profile signing. But it just feels to me that maybe because of this transition post-Klopp and the failed project last season under Arne Slot, not the season before, maybe Liverpool are in flux in terms of who they are right now, in terms of identity and their playing identity.
No, I hear what you're saying. And look, it's the media's job to point these things out and come up with some kind of thesis on why Liverpool haven't won a title for 10 months. And I smile while I say that. But here's the reality. They're still the most successful club in England. They're a world-known club. Everyone knows them. If they want someone and they can come up with the money, they can attract players. Somebody going to Real Madrid over Liverpool, I'm not losing sleep about. A French person going to Paris Saint-Germain because he's basically French and he's live near Paris. Again, that's not a club issue with Liverpool. We will make signings in this window. Areola will instill an identity. It'll be an identity that will be exciting for the fans to watch. I saw a lot of Bournemouth games last year. Any fans who haven't, go watch them. They're young, they're quick, they're dynamic, they never stop pressing, they never give up. If he instills that at Liverpool, and it'll take a minute, it will be exciting. We might not be up there at the start challenging for a title, and it depends how far Arsenal or Man City get ahead, but don't write Liverpool off like that this season. Yes, we're a few pieces missing. We've got the defensive cover sorted now, apparently. We'd love a central midfielder. We'd love a right winger. We'd like a little bit more strength and depth through the squad. But I still think good things can happen this year. And pre-season games have no reflection on how our season's going to go.
No, I like that measured, and I agree with you. But as any football fan or anyone in the media, you do wonder why. You try and get to the root of the problem. But I think Andoni Areola is certainly the answer that they need
him a lot.
to the issues last season. Right, up next we're going to get to your calls, Liverpool fans. 03717 223344. How worried are you? Do you read too much into pre-season, or are you like Darragh here, a little bit more measured and calm about what you've seen in the last couple of games? And who of anyone do you want to bring to the club? All that coming up next.
I anticipate Arsenal to absolutely go again and just be as good as they've been this season. The key element for me on the title this year is Rodri. If Rodri's a Manchester City player throughout the whole course of the season, Manchester City will win the league.
That's a shouting off, that isn't it?
Do you disagree? If Manchester City lose Rodri and he goes to Real Madrid, they will not win the league.
I know what you're saying, but I look at it as well because Anderson's coming, isn't he?
Yeah. So he's not Rodri.
I know he's not Rodri.
But he'll benefit from playing alongside him.
Yeah, that would happen.
But if you leave him on his own in there, I think you've got carnage.
I do know what you're saying, but I think there's more of a factor that Maresca might not be up for it either. You don't know yet.
I think he's up for it.
You reckon he's up for it?
I think he's up for it.
We'll see.
He knows that club. He's been at that club. He understands how that club works.
You're talking like a real Manchester City supporter.
He went to Chelsea. He did.
Are you Blackburn? You're a Blackburn fan, yeah?
Yeah, hold on a minute. We'll talk about their dismal summer in a minute.
What about the other teams?
Why are you doing this? Why are you deflecting?
Well, I'm just trying to say.
All I was doing was talking about the Premier League title race. That's all I was saying. And I was just saying that the big impact, the key piece of information for me is Rodri being a Man City player throughout the whole course of the season. And if he is, Manchester City will win the league.
Cool, but that's a shout.
Do you not think so?
So where was he last season?
Getting back from his ACL, mate. Do you not think so?
No, listen, mate.
So you're tipping Arsenal. You think so? You believe in what I said at the start of the show, that you believe that we're entering a dynasty time.
Yeah, but I wouldn't hang my hat on it.
Good morning, you're listening to Scott and McAnthony in for Jim White and Simon Jordan. Thank you for joining us. We open the show discussing Liverpool's problems, or are they? Darragh MacAnthony incredibly calm about his beloved Liverpool, confident about Andoni Areola, and we're heading to the phone lines in a moment, 03717 223344. Before we do that and hear from the fans, Darragh, of course, a lot's been made of the lack of transfer business, impatient fans wanting more to be done, understandably so, care about their football club. If there's one player, realistically, that Liverpool could sign in this window that you think would, fix some of the issues that maybe we saw last season, who would that be?
I don't know if they'd fix some of the issues, but they do need, someone out wide right. And obviously they're, after a young kid at PSG. But I'd love them to sign Adam Morton at Crystal Palace.
It's a great shout.
I think, McAllister, for me, his legs were gone last year. It was only when he put an Argentina shirt on again, his legs reappeared. If you could do business in there with him going,
yeah,
and I think you bring him in, you've got a player for the next 7-8 years that will be a stalwart, a starter, has got so much upside and potential in him. Even if he costs 85, 100 million or whatever else, you're getting a player for the long term.
Why do you think Adam Wharton's name hasn't been shared so widely as we might expect? Now, I don't know the conversations agents are having, I don't know the conversations clubs are having, but it seems he's not been in the headlines. And for a player that arguably deserved to be in that World Cup squad, or you wouldn't be surprised if he was in some.
He should have been in the World Cup squad.
Why has he not been mentioned that much this summer?
Probably because he wasn't at the World Cup, and that was a shocker. That he didn't get picked. And you saw some of the issues at times England had. He's a player that should be playing for England, and I don't want the Palace fans coming at me because I'm fond of Palace, and I know Steve Parish very well, but he's just a player that too many good players have left in that area to part. Like you lost Bellingham to Europe and whatever else. We want to keep him in the Premier League. I'd love to see him in Liverpool's midfield, and I just think the things he could do in there with some of the talent we already have, it would be a great signing for us. But we do need to replace Van Dijk eventually, on that left side as a centre half, and that's one by the end of next summer. They're going to have to go big in that area.
Wharton walks straight into the starting.
Oh yeah, for me, yeah, all day long, absolutely. He does, and he's funny enough, Harry Leonard, who plays for us, is one of his best friends. So they came through the Blackburn Academy together, and we signed Harry, obviously.
Okay,
He went to Palace. So I've told him, look, he's got to get that Liverpool shirt on.
Absolutely.
That would be for me a blockbuster signing.
Yeah, and I'm surprised it's a move like that for Adam Wharton hasn't materialised just yet, but you never know. Plenty of time left in the window. Right, we're going to head to the phone lines. Carl is a Liverpool fan. Good morning, Carl. Thanks for calling up the show. How are you feeling about all things Liverpool so far?
Yes, good morning, gents. Yeah, I'm okay. I don't mind losing pre-season friendlies. It's about getting match fit, and if that's what the manager is saying, that we can't last a game, I can see where he's coming from. But if you're changing 11 players in the second half, then they're only playing half a game. So to say that some of those players weren't lasting 90 minutes, I think was a bit of a stretch. But I think he's sort of trying to send a message to the owners and, the guys who are perhaps trying to sort out transfers in the background. I hear what your colleague there says about Wharton. I'd have rather that we were in the race and should have gone for Anderson. Personally, I think he's the better option. I don't.
Well, as a Forest fan, I'd have to agree with you, Carl. But Wharton's still a top player. What you shook your head, Darragh. You think that Wharton's the right fit for Liverpool?
I do. Yeah. Look, I get all of Anderson's traits and everything else, and people would argue because Anderson's now more of a 6 these days, the way everyone's playing him for England, and obviously where he's probably going to go in for City.
Yeah.
And Liverpool fans would complain that 6 is a real area of weakness. So I get that argument completely.
All right.
Two very, very good players capable of becoming world class.
Absolutely. Carl, thank you for the call. Paula is a Liverpool fan. Paula, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. What do you make of the situation? Are you a little bit concerned, or are you, like Darragh, feeling quite calm actually ahead of the season?
I totally agree with Darragh. We will give him time. Yes, everything's not perfect, but last season was awful. The football was atrocious. And the thing is, once you lose Anfield, you never get it back.
Sure.
And I think he lost the dressing room before he lost Anfield. But you lose Anfield, you've had it. And just even yesterday, that first half, it was so lovely to watch us passing the ball forward all the time and speedy. And I mean, it was like tennis last year. It was like left to right and back. And we just hated it. And yes, we do deserve, we do want trophies. We are the best team in the world.
Correct.
But But we aren't completely deluded like some other team supporters. We do realise that it takes time to gel, especially some of the youngsters. They're looking really good. So, no, I'm really optimistic. I can't wait till the first game of the season, early kickoff. And let's go there and do Nottingham Forest, sort them out. Although we've got to do Newcastle. Got to do Newcastle first, and I live up here. So
hey, Paul, you've had a tough time when the Mighty Reds have come to Anfield in the last couple of seasons.
Last year was a horror show.
I know, I was there.
Oh.
It was horrendous. And I have a 4-hour drive home. It's really depressing.
Well, other than that game, Paula, I hope that you do well next season. And it is nice to hear the positivity from Paula. And I hope that she's right, that there is that patience at Anfield, because I hope they understand an absolute gem that I think they've got.
Oh, they will.
In Antonio
They will.
Raiola, without a doubt. Right, we're going to head back for another phone call. Sean, the Liverpool fan. Sean, do you share Paula's positivity heading into next season, despite sort of not many signings so far?
Listen, I'm an optimist, but I don't know for sure. At the end of the day, this man's unproven at a European level. So I suppose we're all just hoping and praying. And I'm a bit concerned about the lack of signings. And all the players that have gone on the free over the last kind of couple of years, it really concerns me. It really, really does. But I say you've got to keep the faith. It's just that defensive area. With an agent Van Dijk, what is the plan after Van Dijk? What is the plan? Because Van Dijk's probably got a couple of years in him, if we're lucky. What is the plan for the next 5 to 10 years? Because at the moment, I don't really see one. The likes of Conor Bradley's brilliant. At right back, Kirkhead is, for me, one of the most inconsistent signings I've ever seen in my life. He's either amazing or brutal. So I just... no, it's true. He's amazing or he's brutal. So I don't know.
I agree.
I just don't know where he's going. And you can see the forward line. Like he's actually you can see, Rio and Moga. You can see that they're all kind of for the future and they've got, got legs. But what about the defensive? I don't see no sign. Okay, just not from Barcelona, but I don't see no one for the long term, and it concerns me.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm not worried about the European angle. He hasn't managed in Europe, as I think, at the end of the day, quality rises to the top and we'll be fine. But I agree with you. I think 8 of the last 10 centre-backs we've signed have been for a combined 20-odd million quid. They haven't invested in the back line. So that is one area. There's a lot of changes behind the scenes at Liverpool with technical directors of football potentially leaving. That needs to settle down. Because you're correct about Van Dijk. You're losing one of the greatest centre-halves the Premier League's ever seen. There's a lot of restructuring is going to be needed at the back for Liverpool.
Yeah, no, without doubt. Sean, I think he's got a balanced view there. You look at the defence, Leone injured. He's very highly thought of. Jeremy Jacquet, I think Raiola said he'll be ready next week. There's all potential there. But I do think in a strange way, because they were so poor last season, whether it's injury or form, Wirtz and Isak could almost be like a surprise package because people have written him off so quickly.
He's got them right. I've watched what he's doing with them. That's how you play a 9 and a 10 together. Yeah. You didn't see that last year. I quite like how that's shaping up as a partnership.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. We've got a lovely text from Kate. She says, "Good morning, Max and Darragh." From Kate in sunny Bolton, United fan. It's lovely to have two intelligent and lovely chaps on talkSPORT. Keep those coming in, Katie. Thank you very much. You're listening to Max Scott and Darragh MacAnthony in for Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com.
Look at Real Madrid. Go and look at this is the point that I think Gabby was making this morning. I know that he was making it regarding trophies and what have you, but look at the brand value.
180 million.
There you go. Right, that's how big that football club is.
Right, that's a lot.
That's how big that is as a worldwide entity. 180 million, and you're talking about him coming to a club that has 32 million followers on Instagram. Again, these are very basic metrics. Very basic metrics. But Vinicius Junior is in a completely different stratosphere. All this talk about him coming to Arsenal throughout the whole course of the summer has just been manipulation from an agent trying to get the dude a few more quid. That's what it is. He was never in a million years going to be an Arsenal player this summer. That's what it is. It's just manipulating the market. Let's see if I can get some more money for my guy. Yeah. Why would he come to Arsenal?
I said that. I said that was the agent talk. agent talk. Just using Arsenal as a
leverage
tool.
Yeah, Arsenal are interested. Oh, right, wicked, brilliant. Arsenal, champions of England. Right, well, let's use them.
Yeah.
Let's use them. Go back to the
They
table
need a
with the
left
Real
sided
Madrid lads.
forward.
Yeah, he's coming out of contract. You know what I mean? He needs a few more zeros on this contract.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to sign Yandy Mande. Let's put some pressure on you. Now, don't worry about that. Vinny Junior ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
Is it?
Come on. You can't leave. I just don't see leaving Real Madrid as a. Unless you don't leave Real Madrid unless Real Madrid leaves you.
That's it.
That's it, mate.
Unless you come to the end of your time on your way, son.
Can't have a supermodel girlfriend and you leaving your supermodel girlfriend.
She leaves you
for the dinner lady. Like, you know what I mean?
The dinner lady. You can't call Arsenal a dinner lady.
Oh, it's love, innit? It's love.
talkSPORT News.
Good morning. With your headlines, I'm Sinead Garvan. One of the most wanted men in the world has appeared in court in Dublin. Daniel Kinahan's accused of being the boss of a criminal gang smuggling drugs and guns into Europe. The 49-year-old former boxing promoter had been living in Dubai before being extradited last night. He spoke to the podcaster James English just before he was flown home.
And I'm sitting here reflecting a little bit, and I'm thinking of what happened, how I got here, all the stuff that's happened in my life.
The Prime Minister's speeding up plans to make cancelling subscriptions easier. It will also force companies to clearly warn you before contracts auto-renew at higher prices. Critics say the savings are minimal and don't go far enough. Business Minister Chris MacDonald disagrees.
Most households, we think, have about 3 subscriptions, and just by getting on top of the subscriptions alone will save them on average about £14 a month. But this is not tinkering about the edges. This is about putting money back in people's pockets.
Thames Water's just paid £1 million to its finance chief, despite being over £20 billion worth in debt. The company delayed making the welcome payment until its lawyers confirmed they legally had to. And more parts of England are expected to be officially declared in drought later. It's as the 5th heat wave of the year is due this week.
Good morning, it's Max Scott and Darragh MacAnthony in for Jim and Simon on talkSPORT. Thank you for joining us. A reminder, live domestic football back this weekend. In fact, it starts Wednesday. We've got the 2 European champions, PSG against Aston Villa in the Super Cup at Salzburg. That's Wednesday night. And then Friday night, the EFL is back. Wolves against Blackburn, and then a whole host of fixtures and around the grounds hosted by Adrian Durham. But of course, it did begin with the Carabao Cup this weekend. Darrah's Portsmouth, Peterborough were in action. A 1-0 win despite the naysayers' sort of critiques, beating Bristol.
Yeah.
One over your old manager. Good day out?
Yeah, no, really good day out. Really enjoyed it. It was hot out there. But look, it's a cup, and the real stuff starts on Saturday. And obviously everyone this week will be at it. And probably get very busy from this weekend onwards, because I've seen so many managers this weekend talk about the lack of deals, lack of transfers, you know. So, but it's always nice to start with a win, and we haven't won in the League Cup since the old King died. So it's been a while.
I know that we've spoken a lot about your transfers. Do you feel that extra pressure to get them done before the weekend?
No. The one thing I said that, you know, I made a vow in May, June when we met that there wouldn't be any panic signings. There would be no desperation in what we do.
Yep.
We would have to be methodical. We would have to get it right. You know, we've had, you know, the last 4 windows, we've had 2 really good ones and 2 pretty subpar ones. So, you know, as we grow and build this manager squad that he's capable of taking to the next level, we have to get it absolutely right.
Would you ever, if you didn't get it right, would you come out and say, we've messed up here, we've not got those deals?
Yeah, of course. If the team doesn't perform or whatever else, I would always take my share to blame. It's not just about, look, I don't want to fire any football manager. And, you know, Darren Ferguson obviously last year left, and I didn't love letting him go. And the criticism of me would be a lot of the players probably came in too late in the window. That was really difficult to handle at the time, and I would admit to that. But there were players we wanted, and clubs just wouldn't let them go, and a lot of them weren't fit. So there's always reasons. So you will take your share of your responsibility.
But good start for the Posh. Yep. Good win. You're involved in 3 cup competitions this season. FA Cup, Carabao Cup, the Virtue Trophy, as well as League One. How much weight do you put on these cup competitions? Do you rank them in terms of importance?
Well, the FA Cup's important for finances because you never put it in your cash flow. So if you can win the first 2 rounds, that's about 100 grand. If you can get lucky and get a biggie in the 3rd round. Last year, my heart was broken. We got Cardiff in round 1, best team in our league, probably bar Lincoln. We beat them. We then get Barnsley in round 2, who at the time were like top 10 League One. And then the winner was getting Liverpool at Anfield. So, A, it's the club I support. 20 years I've been waiting for that tie. And then 2, you'd have made about £1 million. So suddenly your cash flow improves by £1 million and your manager might have an extra few shillings in the January window. So, FA Cup's important. The trophy I love. Trophy we won 3 times. We made history going back to back. I'd love to win it again. The dream scenario would be the trophy and a promotion. Yeah. Twice we've come close to that, where we've won the trophy but lost in the playoffs. You'd love the double. That's our version of the double.
You talk about there, last season you were gutted you didn't get that tie against Liverpool.
Yeah.
Why is it, is it just finances that clubs always want a big team in the next round? Is that the case for the Carabao Cup? We've got Premier League teams coming in, Chelsea, Spurs.
Yeah, there's no prize money in the Carabao Cup, really. I think the benefits are if you're on TV, like towards the back end of the quarterfinals, semi-finals. Some of the lower league teams have gone to the semis before. I think Bradford years ago had an unbelievable run, made a few quid. I think the best tie you can get is Chelsea away. You probably make about 350. Now, again, if you got a 5 million hole every year and you're selling players, doing whatever else, every 100, 200, 300, 400 grand bonus that's not in your cash flow is fantastic for a club. So that's the beauty. That's why we were gutted when FA Cup replays were done away. The amount of non-league teams that would have had the benefit who drew and then made it in the away next tie would have been on TV, would have made more money from the gate. It's really critical for EFL clubs to have that.
So you're saying that in the next round of the Carabao Cup, Chelsea is away.
Chelsea and Tottenham.
They're the only games worth it.
Financially, most likely, yes.
So would you rather, if you don't get them, get
I'd like to be at home. I'd like to be at home.
Against a side that you can beat, so then you've got a better chance of getting a bigger team in the next round.
And I think in the early rounds you can beat anyone because a lot of the Prem teams even play their second stringers, their younger players or whatever else. Even the Championship clubs do as well. So I think if you can be at home, it'd be great. We were unfortunate this year that we got the league fixture away for like the 5th year in a row to start the season, and then we got drawn in the cup away. So it'd be nice to get some home games.
Would you rather, you talk about the financial benefit of getting a Chelsea or a Spurs in the next round.
Yep.
And that's going away. So would you not rather play them at home where you've maybe got a better chance of beating them in front of your own fans?
Well, it depends. We drew Man City a few years ago. We got them at home. We made about 680. We maxed out what we could make. If that had been away,
680 grand.
Yeah, if that had been away, we probably might have made 800-900 grand. So again, it depends. Look, no football club outside the Premier League makes money. They all lose money. So anything in the cup is just a bonus. And if you can max that out as much as you can, you would take playing away from home every day of the week.
So do you see these cup competitions more as an opportunity to make money rather than to go on a deep run?
Well, we've won the EFL trophy a lot, so I see that as one we can win. We've got no chance of winning the Carabao Cup and no chance of winning the FA Cup. But what we do have a chance to do is get our debts down, help pay our bills, without having to maybe sell your players, and obviously giving your players the platform to show that they can do it against some great sides. So there are all those highlights in it, but really you got no chance of winning those 2 trophies.
So you're just calling it as it is. Yeah, we just want to
cash cups,
rinse as much money as you possibly
absolutely
can.
That's the truth. Absolutely. So what's the point in lying? So that is the reality. So give me Chelsea away, and if by some miracle we go and beat Chelsea away, that's fantastic. Years ago we beat Villa away, in the FA Cup, and it was an unbelievable day out for our fans. But really, it's a cash cow. If you could make it a cash cow for most football clubs.
What does that say about the current footballing ecosystem for EFL clubs, that we've got an owner being honest and saying, yes, this is really about money because we're all trying to stay afloat? Because as it stands, as you say, we're all losing money.
Yeah, well, that's been like that for years. That's the world we live in. I guess people would say, give me 5th in the Premier League to get in the Champions League, not to win it, but to get the money. So it's the same equivalent as me saying the FA Cup.
Yeah.
So, with all due respect to Newcastle and Villa, and they're very wealthy clubs, they don't really expect to win the Champions League, do they? But they love the benefit of making 100, 150 million. Their fans get all those away trips. They're in the biggest competition in the world. But it's financial. How many times have we heard it's critical this club qualifies for the Champions League, including Man United, who've missed out in the last few years or a couple of years. So that's the same equivalent as me saying, well, the FA Cup is financial for us as clubs.
No, I'm not criticising you for it.
No.
We appreciate the honesty.
I'm not sensitive to criticism.
Yeah.
I'll always call it what it is. Look, every club in the EFL loses money.
Okay. with then the expansionism of football, whether it's the suggestions of the Super League, whether it's the Club World Cup, whether it's an increased Champions League, more fixtures, and the Players' Union, I think understandably so, saying our players play too much. Eventually, something has to give. Are you concerned, as somebody that authentically looks at this situation as an EFL owner and says, we need these competitions for the money that it can provide our football clubs? Are you worried that cups like the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup are essentially going to be stripped completely or reduced in the calendar, which is obviously then going to affect?
Yeah, we can't let that happen. Carabao Cup's really important to the EFL and the finances involved in it. It's still a majestic trophy. It still has a place in Europe up for grabs, and that's really important. I think we're the only league out there that has its third cup or second cup leading to a European place. About player safety and overplaying them, with all due respect, 10, 12, 15 years ago, squads were like 16 to 18.
But they played less.
They played less, 8 games, 10 games less? Okay. And this is not me having to go players or the PFA or anyone else, but back then the squads were probably 35% smaller. Squads are massive now. And it's not only that, your squad, you've got academies, you've got under 21s, you've got a lot of players on your payroll. I probably employ over 50 footballers at my football club, whether it's the first team, the 21s, the academy, all the way down. So can we handle 60, 65 games a year? We've done it constantly. I don't see it as a problem. I have a friend of mine, his dad's a coal miner. He's down a coal mine 15 hours a day. I'm sure he, with all due respect, he works a lot harder than me, and he works a lot harder than most people in the sports world.
You say the EFL can't let that happen. Do the EFL have the power to, in the future, prevent the EFL Cup or the FA Cup being stripped back? Did you really think that you can stop that?
I think the EFL, we don't get enough credit for being, having the power or whatever else. Look, the football pyramid is a massive part of what football is in the UK, particularly in England. So without the pyramid, the Premier League isn't as sexy as everyone thinks worldwide. What makes us the sexiest is our pyramid. Just ask the MLS while they're struggling for the viewership. And I understand it's $1 trillion industry in the future. So we still have an ordinance power, and we still have a big say in everything, and that includes cup competitions. So I'm on the EFL board. There's a lot of great people who work at the EFL. But the one thing we're not is bullies. The one thing is we are is fair. Everything we look at is for the good of the game. Yes, it's for the good of the EFL. We're even looking at non-league. We're looking at other things. Carabao Cup is a big part of our agreements, big part of the finances involved. We don't want to see any of those trophies disappear because players are playing 3 or 4 or 5 games extra a year.
We've seen the reports in the news regarding that the deal struck between the Premier League and the EFL, the financial deal.
There's no deal.
There's no deal just yet.
No. That's just that stuff gets put out in the press, that this deal and that deal, and the press obviously, run along with those storylines for the Premier League, what's going on. Talks are happening, of course, and both parties have been very respectful. I can't say a lot about the talks. All I'm saying is, of course, that, things are getting proposed. There are discussions taking place.
Do you feel that things are moving forward?
I feel that the EFL and the Premier League are in a place where they have wanted to be for a long time as regards sitting there talking. I think the regulator has helped play a big part in that. I think common sense hopefully will come into play. And I think, we're meant to be part of a football family. And what we don't want to be is, the red-haired stepchild that, always gets neglected and left in the corner. And
close your ears, producer Dan.
Yeah, sorry about that, Dan, So at the end of the day, am I optimistic that we will get something done eventually? Yeah, now more than ever. Is it going to happen tomorrow? No. But it will happen, and it will be for the good of the game.
Lastly on this, how would you describe the current relationship between the EFL and the Premier League? Because it seems to me, and again, these are just reports, but it's not been the best previously. But from what you're saying, things sound like they're improving.
Yeah, I think people change in positions of power, whether it be in the Premier League or the EFL. And I think we have to get to a stage where we have a pretty solid relationship built on respect, and where neither party's abusing each other and neither party's taking advantage of each other. And I think the parameters are there in place that we can all get to that place. And I think that's going to be brilliant for football. But at the same time, put the Premier League to the side. We as EFL owners and football clubs have to look inside and go, Premier League, no Premier League. We have to get our own house in order. We have to make sure that we do things sensibly and we don't overspend and we're more sustainable. And anything that ever happens, more money, not more money, it can't all go in one place. Fans are going on about ticket prices, infrastructure, facilities, all the things we need to improve in our game, we need to be able to invest in. And if we keep all putting the money into transfers and wages and all of that, those things will just get worse and worse.
Steve, the Charlton fan, gets in touch. Great show as always. Love hearing Darragh on talkSPORT these last few weeks. He speaks so well, and the truth. Football is a business, and it must be ran as such. Yeah. Love the openness and the honesty. You're listening to Max Scott and Darragh MacAnthony, in for Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com.
Chris, what about Man U? I fancy United have a much better season. I think Michael deserves this job, and I do think they're going to be up there. I think they're going to push. I think they're going to be strong.
No, I do. I think I'm so happy to see Carragher's just thriving. I think, obviously, having played with him, you know what kind of character he is. He's that composed and he's intelligent, and he's obviously bringing that into one of the biggest jobs in world football. And I think the run they obviously had at the end of last season, obviously in 2026, I think they were like number one in points taken. So for him to be able to have a full pre-season, bring in whoever he likes in terms of players and just have that belief, I think there's no one better kind of, steering that ship really. And no, I'm excited to see what the season brings for them.
I think it's going to be an interesting season, Chris, all round, because so many new managers. You don't know what to expect. Liverpool, Chelsea, Spurs have spent big money as well. Whether they can try and get into that top four. And obviously, the only one with a little bit of stability is probably Arsenal. But it's always hard to retain that title, isn't it?
100%. I think everyone's going to be hungrier than ever, and it is hard to kind of maintain that. You're now the golden ones that everyone wants to compete and to fight against. So I'm happy for United to be able to have that consistency from last season, because like you say, a lot of players are going to be coming, a lot of managerial changes. So I think United's got the perfect start at the minute, and hopefully hit the ground running.
Good morning, you're listening to White and Jordan, Max Scott and Darragh MacAnthony in for Jim and Simon. Still to come, we're going to be asking the question, what's the point of fan boards? Do owners listen to fans? We're going to as well be discussing the future of Marcus Rashford as he returns to Manchester United's pre-season camp in Ireland. But now we're going to get the very latest from the transfer window. As we wait for the season to properly get underway, the transfer window is keeping us busy. And I'm delighted to say a man that's been across it all summer, been incredibly busy, is talkSPORT senior football correspondent Ben Jacobs, who is with us this morning. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, how are you?
Yeah, doing well, mate. Now, we'll get to some juicy transfer lines in a minute, but of course, you are our resident expert on all things world football governance, FIFA, UEFA, CONCACAF. There has been a joint letter from UEFA, CONCACAF and the AFC to Infantino. Interpret that for us, Ben. What's happened and what does it mean in this ongoing all-out war in football?
So UEFA, CONCACAF and the AFC have done a move of solidarity. They've written this joint letter signed by Alexander Shefrin, Sheikh Salman bin Ibrahim Al Khalifa and Victor Montagliani. And the latter two have both been suggested as potential candidates to run against Gianni Infantino. And even though some federations in Asia have supported Gianni Infantino, this is kind of a block position. And the letter calls for an independent review into FIFA Forward Enterprise, the failed privatisation plans of Gianni Infantino. And it adds, and I quote, "Trust is broken through deception when an individual, namely Gianni Infantino, places himself above the collective." Now, my understanding in terms of how we interpret this is that the three confederations, at least at executive and leadership level, are putting an onus on Gianni Infantino to walk before he's potentially pushed or outvoted. And yet we know from the FIFA statement from a few days ago that Infantino plans to fight on. And in addition, my feeling is that these three confederations are prepared not just to threaten boycott, which we know is the UEFA position, but also break away to organise tournaments themselves and make this March election, if Gianni Infantino remains, less about Infantino and more about, if you vote for Infantino, there may be no FIFA, in the hope that federations that support Infantino realise very quickly that electing him doesn't draw a line under this. It might actually create a breakaway.
Yeah, look, it's fascinating stuff. I'm loving it. Darragh's absolutely sick of it. So we'll move on to the transfers. Can we talk about this potential swap deal between Dwight McNeil and Brennan Johnson? Where are we at with that? You've been reporting this from the very beginning. Is it going to happen?
Yeah, it's done. So the players have got permission to undergo their medical today. It's a swap deal, which is relatively old-fashioned in football. The expectation is that cash won't change hands. If it does, then you have issues under the new UEFA 45-day window in terms of declaring it on the books, even though, of course, some of the teams and some of the long-term financing has these clubs outside of the actual UEFA financial cycle, but it's still something to be conscious of. And these two clubs feel the valuation is the same for both players. That may be up for debate.
Ben,
so McNeil nearly joined in the January window, and there was paperwork issue, and then Brennan Johnson was a club record signing at the time for Crystal Palace, but it hasn't really worked out. And I think most would say, I don't know whether you guys agree, Johnson probably appears more valuable than McNeil, but they found a way of doing the deal, and it should be formalised today.
That's a bad deal. I can't believe Everton aren't paying millions more for Brennan Johnson. I mean, he's what? Is he 3-4 years younger than Dwight McNeil?
He's a lot. He's certainly a lot younger. Yeah.
Yeah, I am astonished at that. There surely has to be other bits in that deal.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of shock over that one.
But, I mean, Ben said there, and I agree with him, it's quite old-fashioned, a swap deal, particularly a straight swap. Why are those things less popular these days, or why don't we see them as much?
Hey, yeah, that's a really great question, to be fair. I've never done a swap deal in 20 years, I don't think, as the owner of Peterborough. So, maybe we'll bring it back into fashion. But I for one, think I'd be amazed. Palace paid, 30-odd million for him? And they value McNeil at 20 to 30 million. Ben, how old is McNeil?
He's only a year older, actually. McNeil's 26.
It feels like he's been around
Johnson's
forever.
24. Credit to McNeil, by the way, an absolute consummate professional. I can certainly see why any Premier League club would want him at their club. Yeah. But I would agree, Brennan Johnson's feels to me the more lucrative player. Yeah. Palace have got a good deal here. Ben, can we talk about Jamie Vardy? Potentially, there are reports that West Ham might be interested. I mean, that'd be great for the EFL to have Jamie Vardy back. What can you tell us about his future?
Yeah, first of all, no move for Peterborough?
No, he's too old. It
Doesn't
hit
fit
our
your
criteria.
profile.
Doesn't fit our profile for our strikers yet. No, absolutely. But
Jamie Vardy assessing all options. We know he was training at Leicester, but there was never a possibility of a return there. He actually had the possibility of doing one extra year in Italy, but it was subject on securing safety, so that never happened. And now he's a free agent, and West Ham may be opportunistic to this possibility. At the moment, those close to Vardy say that he's had several options, including from the MLS as well, and is basically just assessing. And don't forget, West Ham are starting to become well-stocked in terms of sources of goals, because Manor Solomon will complete his transfer to West Ham from Tottenham today. £5 million, £2 million in add-ons. He's got permission to undergo a medical as well. So Vardy, I think, is going to take his time. And for free agents, they're not bound by the deadline day. They can sign at any point. So let's see whether West Ham decide to move. But I'm told by those on the player side that Vardy is going to think very carefully before making his next decision.
Did I see Troy Parrott? West Ham are trying to get him as their main striker, the Irish boy.
Yeah, that's possible as well. I mean, there's quite a high
signing.
valuation, and rightly so, because he ultimately has been in excellent form. Ajax have added a couple of attack-minded options, but they were there for a little bit as well. And I think Parrott and West Ham could be one to watch. But when you kind of compare the two, you've got Parrott in form, younger, more expensive, Vardy, free agent, but still a relatively high wage, you would imagine, as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if West Ham had one more, and that's maybe where these Vardy links come from.
Ben Jacobs, as ever, thank you so much. Brilliant stuff, mate.
Thank you.
That is talkSPORT senior football correspondent Ben Jacobs with the very latest. Up next, we're going to chat about Marcus Rashford and his future at the football club. Sean Dyche with some really interesting comments on his future on talkSPORT yesterday evening. We'll get into that next. You're listening to Max Scott, Darragh MacAnthony, in for Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
I totally got going for Vinny Jr., but I don't get going for just another one. And
not Barcola. There's lots of reports that
I don't see Barcola at the sort of levels that others do. Clearly,
145 million.
I don't see
having
him,
a laugh.
I don't see him at anything like that sort of money. I really don't. I think he is way behind Kvaratskhelia and Desiree Doué. Personally, I think they're far better players. I don't think he's got the end product in his game to warrant 140 odd million quid. No chance. And I don't think I'd swap Martinelli for him. I think I would.
For Barcola?
No, I'm honestly, because I think Martinelli knows this division, has proven himself now to be a valuable member of Arsenal's team, and I don't see that it's that much of a massive trade up for the sort of money that they'd need to invest in him.
Yeah, I mean, I have to disagree with you there, Andy. I think Martinelli, for me, I've just run out of a little bit of patience with him. 1 goal last year in the Premier League. He was good in the Champions League, but this has been an area that Arsenal have struggled with for a number of seasons, and I think it will be really, really disappointing for Arsenal not to address it in a bigger way than they've done already. Solis has shown some really good signs in pre-season. I'm putting my eggs in the Barcola basket, but maybe I'm just
not going to pay £145 million for him. They're just not.
I don't.
You know, if that's what. And okay, there'd be some negotiation available there, but seriously.
talkSPORT Sports Update with NordVPN, our fastest, most advanced VPN for digital privacy and security.
A very good morning. You're listening to talkSPORT here with your sports headlines. I'm Amelia Beltrao. FIFA and its president Gianni Infantino have been accused of breaking trust through deception in an open letter issued by UEFA, CONCACAF and the AFC. While it doesn't directly name the FIFA president, it's understood it should be seen as an opportunity for him to resign with dignity. Ben Jacobs has been taking a look at the letter.
It calls for an independent review into FIFA forward enterprise and adds that, quote, trust is broken through deception when an individual places himself above the collective.
Some transfer lines for you now. Barcelona feeling positive that they can sign Rodri after good talks over the weekend. Everton and Crystal Palace are closing in on Dwight McNeil and Brennan Johnson swapping over, with medicals taking place as early as today. Wrexham have agreed an $8 million fee with Sunderland for goalkeeper Anthony Patterson. Manor Solomon is having his West Ham medical later, and West Ham are keeping an eye on Jamie Vardy's situation as they look to sign a striker. Elsewhere, can Liverpool handle Andoni Areola's style of play? It's after the new Reds boss admitted we don't have enough energy for 90 minutes right now, following their loss to Monaco. Darragh MacAnthony is calling for patience, though.
What we might have to do as Liverpool fans is wait a minute, because at Bournemouth it was a bit of a slow start. Yeah. And that's just getting across his stress testing he does to the players. So what we might see in August and a little bit of September, the results we won't love, but then as they kick on towards the end of September onwards, we'll fly.
And Jose Mourinho has been dishing out the tea in his new Netflix documentary, saying he agreed to take over from Sir Alex Ferguson at Man United, but pulled from the deal at the last minute. It was also revealed that Mourinho's Chelsea once obtained footage of Bolton training to help their Premier League challenge.
talkSPORT News.
230 migrants are thought to have arrived on one boat crossing the channel last night, and it looks like we've fallen out of love with the convertible car. Sinead has more in half an hour.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. Sort your new tyres this summer at a time that suits you best from the comfort of your home or work 7 days a week with our mobile tyre fitting service. Conditions apply.
Dry and warm for most of us today, with some patchy cloud and sunny spells. A few showers possible in the north-east of Scotland.
Good morning, you're listening to Max Scott and Darragh MacAnthony in for Jim White and Simon Jordan. We're live on talkSPORT this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your texts and calls so far as well. 03717 223344 is the number to call if you want to have your say. The phone lines are free. If you want to get on, speak to Darragh and me, call that number. A reminder still to come, we're going to be looking ahead to the EFL starting this weekend. Of course, exclusive coverage live on talkSPORT as the championship gets underway. Wolves against Blackburn, presented by Adrian Durham, Jim Proudfoot and Dean Ashton coming up later this week. But in the meantime, Marcus Rashford has reported for duty with Manchester United in Dublin yesterday. Marcus Rashford, of course, hasn't played a game for almost 2 years at his boyhood club. Made his last appearance on the 12th of December 2024 against Victoria Pilsen in the Europa League. He's now been given a new number 14, the same number as Christian Eriksen, Jesse Lingard and Chicharito, the number that they wore during their time at the club. And former Everton and Forest manager Sean Dyche, John Majestic on the final word last night, said he believes Michael Carrick is the man to get Rashford back to his best.
I think the Rashford thing's an interesting one, and it's well, what I would say is the manager now in place, if anyone's going to get an arm on the shoulder, not literally, because he might not need that, by the way, I'm just imagining, you know, like that discussion process when you speak with the player, go, look, why not come back and revive yourself once again?
Yeah.
You know, because he can under a new manager. different, different feel, different management style, different people around you, and that sort of thinking. Rashford, he's still a good player. Amazed he didn't get a bit more time in the World Cup, personally, because of his direct running and his direct carrying of the ball, and he's an effective player. Whether he can go back and get it going again, we'll have to wait and see. But I think he'll probably be in good hands, I would imagine, with familiar faces around him, you know what I mean, at the top.
Sean Dyche's got a good point there, Darragh.
Yeah, I think if you ask United fans, forget history for a moment, that, look, you're signing a player that was playing wide for Barcelona last year, 30 goals and assists combined, is England's pretty much, top two wingers in the England team. You'd be like, who's the guy? What's his name? When are we signing him? So I guess, look, it's down to Rashford, it's down to the club. We all know there's a player in there. He's always had the potential to be potentially world class. It's just, I think he's gotten his own way. And I think he's been away for 2 years. Has he grown up? Can Carrick extract that from him? Is he too expensive for United to carry because of the wages and everything else? But look, if United start and they're winning and they're up there challenging for a title and they're doing well in the Champions League and he's in their team every week, running the hard yards, I don't think anyone would argue with that.
Steve gets in touch with the United fans. He says, boys, with Rashford, we've been down this road so many times. We've sang his name, give him over 300 grand a week, backed him and watched him stink the gaff out week after week. Body language is such a huge part of football.
It is.
I can't sit in the Stretford end again and watch him sort of mope around and sulk on the pitch. He's worked hard for any club who'd take him on loan over his supposed boyhood club. We've been down this road too many times. Shake hands, get him out the door ASAP. Do you understand that sentiment from some Manchester United fans?
Totally. I totally get it. Yes, he's burnt his bridges there. I get all the reasons for it, and he's done himself no favours whatsoever. Like I said, the player had potential to be top. Really, it's time to buy him a giant mirror. It's like, look in the mirror, son. Barcelona didn't want to buy you for 30-odd million. That's a drop in the ocean for a club like Barcelona. Nobody in the Premier League allegedly wants you either. Because I don't see any, I said recently maybe Tottenham should sign him, but they're obviously not getting the bids. So you're already at one of the biggest clubs in the world. Like, at some point, when does the penny drop? Because your next contract's not going to be 350 grand a week. The Saudi money looks like it's going away. I ain't sure Turkey, somewhere he's going to want to live. Yep. So where are you going after this? How old is he now? He's still, he's in his prime. So he's really got to figure this out and buckle down. Or he's going to become a 31-year-old nobody, who basically his career is dried up and finished, in a few years' time. So really, maybe they're going to motivate Marcus Rashford. Maybe that will suit Man United. But I agree about the body language. I agree everything that happened before. And he ended up with a massive contract that they can't get out from under. So I don't think the people at United, the powers to be, will fall for that again. Even if he's player of the year, he ain't getting a new contract. But if he can help them, I'm sure he'd be a useful tool.
This is clearly an issue that divides fans. My three best mates from home are all United fans, even though they're from Yorkshire. But that's another issue. And they and they're kind of on this page, the same page as Ryan. He says, I hope Rashford does stay at United because I'm absolutely terrified that Arsenal's search for a new left winger ends with Rashford on loan. So please stay at United, please.
I get that. I get it completely. You don't want to see one of your own. You've produced from your academy, who's to an extent failed later on in their career, irritated all the fans, done all of that, and then ends up at one of your rivals and helps them maybe go back to back in titles. Yeah. So I get that argument.
You've said in regards to Steve's message, Marcus Rashford burned his bridges. Yeah. But of course, in life and in football, it's always possible to rebuild bridges.
There's always a second chance.
Have you ever had that with a player who was sort of behaved in a way that you haven't seen befitting of Peterborough? Maybe they've been a sulker and a moaner and they've not tracked back, and you've thought, we're not having it, and then you had them back.
We've had a couple of players behave like that. Not many of them we've taken back down the line. A couple we've had that we'd written off, and then we got back to playing to a good level. Do you know what I mean? And for whatever reason. I wouldn't say the person the most would be Lee Tomlin, who was a fabulous player for us, who, when I wouldn't sell him to Celtic, he smashed up my manager's office. He threw a strop. He got sent off, I think, in like 6 of the next 15 games. But he was a lovable rogue, and I still love him to this day. We took him back on loan years later, and he was fatter than me at the time. And to be fair to him, he got himself in shape, and he actually went back and won a new contract, I believe, at Cardiff, which was his club, and we played a part in that. So I've been in that situation, and you have to be very careful. But I would never say he was toxic in our dressing room or he was a snake in our dressing room. He was just a lovable rogue, and everyone knew what he was like and how he could lose his head. But he never meant evil. Do you get what I mean? Yeah, Evil's a strong word. There's a lot of toxicity in football and dressing rooms, and I've seen players come in and they can be toxic, and then they can set off a stench that you can't recover from.
I understand that, and there will be people that tell you that Marcus Rashford is a toxic.
Yeah, and I'm not saying he is. I don't know him personally.
And I happen to think, and again, I've never met the man. I don't have any inside information, but I look at Marcus Rashford and the things he did for school children and free school.
Yeah,
absolutely. That feels like a lifetime ago. But you can't tell me that that's a toxic figure. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't need to take accountability for some nights out and not turning up to training and things like that we saw under previous managers.
That can't happen.
But players can change. And you look at some of the, you read some of the reports that Manchester United are looking for maybe someone to back up Benjamin Sesko as a striker or a left-sided midfielder. Yeah. Well, Marcus Rashford does both.
No, but
so surely
hang on.
There's a world where he's the missing puzzle.
Back up.
He's in their puzzle.
He's going to be happy with a smile on his face backing up those players sitting on the bench after what happened when he was actually in the team. That's what people are worried about. His body language was like that when he was in the team. Never mind if he's on the bench. So what I guess what United fans don't want is a circus. They don't want the Rashford circus. They're at a place finally now where the ownership and everything that's going on at United, they feel last season was like trajectory going that way. And they've had a couple of crap years. Last year was a really good year where they were back up there. They're in the Champions League. And what they don't want is the steam taken out of their momentum. Mm-hmm. So I guess the Rashford circus, it needs to be a good one, not a hectic one. And that's the concern with a lot of the fans.
You're very big from when I've listened to you or when I've worked with you on protecting the people that work for you, whether it's your staff, your players, and I imagine that's something that you absolutely want in your manager.
Yeah.
Michael Carrick has a history at Manchester United. He's already worked with Marcus Rashford. He'll have a relationship with him. How can Carrick shut out the noise and get the best out of Marcus Rashford? Because there's no doubt in my mind Michael Carrick will want this to work because it's essentially a free signing. Well, it's not. He's on an astronomical wage. But how does he get the best out of him?
So you sit in front of him. You look at the colour of his eyes, you smell the colour of you-know-what, and you say to Marcus, look, known you for a long time, we know all the history's the past, here's what's going to happen going forward. You miss training, you're gone. You're late for training, you're gone. You misbehave match day, you're gone. You come off the pitch as a sub and you give it a look, you look like what, you're gone. I'm telling you now, it's last chance saloon. I'm willing to give you that as long as you sign up to all the things I've just said. I don't want to hear about your social life. I want the ultimate professional. If you run 11, 12k every game, you get 10 goals, 15 assists for the season, you will get a great move for yourself next year. Barcelona have just rejected you. Where are you going to get rejected by next? So it's now or never, son. What do you want to do? And I'd look him in the eye and ask him the question, then I'd shake his hand and say, give me your word. Now, if the player lets you down on that, that's on them. But I'd also come out in the press and say exactly what I said to him and the player's response. And I'd probably put the player next to me in a press conference and go, Marcus, did I say all these things to you? Yes, Gaffer. Great. Did we shake hands on it? Yes, Gaffer. Well, then it's on you if any of that happens this season and you put the player on notice. That's how I do it. Transparent and honest. Manchester
United fans, do you want that from Michael Carrick, or would you rather the club just get rid and end the Marcus Rashford saga? 03717 223344 is the number to call. The phone lines are empty. If you call up now, you'll get through. Have your say. I've got a feeling this is going to be something that divides the fan base. You're listening to Max Scott and Darragh MacAnthony in for Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go. So far this season, you've got Jeremy Jacquet from Rennes.
Yep.
And then you've got Victor Munoz from Osasuna.
Yep.
Obviously, Araujo's on his way, Barcelona captain, high-profile signing.
Yep.
But it just feels to me that maybe because of this transition post-Klopp and the failed project last season under Arne Slot, not the season before, maybe Liverpool are in flux in terms of who they are right now in terms of identity and their playing identity.
No, I hear what you're saying. And look, it's the media's job to point these things out and come up with some kind of thesis on why Liverpool haven't won a title for 10 months. And I smile while I say that. But here's the reality. They're still the most successful club in England.
Yeah.
They're a world-known club. Everyone knows them. If they want someone and they can come up with the money, they can attract players. Somebody going to Real Madrid over Liverpool, I'm not losing sleep about. A French person going to Paris Saint-Germain because he's basically French and he lives near Paris. Again, that's not a club issue at Liverpool. We will make signings in this window. Areola will instill an identity. It'll be an identity that will be exciting for the fans to watch. I saw a lot of Bournemouth games last year. Any fans who haven't, go watch them.
Yeah.
They're young, they're quick, they're dynamic, they never stop pressing, they never give up. If he instills that at Liverpool, and it'll take a minute, it will be exciting. We might not be up there at the start challenging for a title, and it depends how far Arsenal or Man City get ahead. But don't write Liverpool off like that this season. Yes, we're a few pieces missing. We've got the defensive cover sorted now, apparently. We'd love a central midfielder. We'd love a right winger. We'd like a little bit more strength and depth through the squad. But I still think good things can happen this year. And pre-season games have no reflection on how our season's going to go.
Yep. Good morning, you're listening to Max Scott, Darragh MacAnthony in for the brilliant Jim White and Simon Jordan. We've opened Pandora's box here this morning with regards to Marcus Rashford. Darragh MacAnthony with the refreshing take on the honest conversation that Michael Carrick should have with Rashford if it's going to happen. But I get a feeling that Marcus Rashford's return to the club is dividing opinion. I, for one, for what it's worth, think it would be fantastic if that bridge could be rebuilt, but we don't know what fans think until now. Ash has called the show. Ash, talk to us. Good morning. Thanks for calling. How are you feeling about Rashford? What do you want to happen?
Well, first things first, he should be nowhere near good morning, lads, to both of you.
Morning.
Cheers, he should be nowhere near Manchester United. He doesn't deserve to wear that red jersey. It's as simple as that. He sent that message on Insta, thanking Villa, thanking Unai Emery, thanking Barcelona for getting Manchester United, the club who helped him throughout his whole career, giving him the biggest wage packet he could possibly get, and then he didn't even thank him for the call up. That's one thing. But before he was leaving, his attitude was so poor. He didn't want to run around. He didn't want to put the effort. He thought he was bigger than the club. Even after getting the biggest wage packet we could have possibly given him, there's no forgiving that. I understand you might not agree with managers and their tactics, but one thing you can do is put hard work in, and he didn't do none of that.
Ash.
Watch the ball go past him. It's unacceptable. I don't want him anywhere near the club. It's as simple as that.
There you go. I mean, you can feel the passion from Ash there. And look, he's a Man United fan. He probably pays his money for tickets, and he sees particularly the social media stuff get in the way. Is there a way back for him? For fans like Ash?
It's going to be really difficult, so I guess you're going to have to trust the manager. Michael Carrick needs to come out and get ahead of this. And basically, because I'm sure he's going to get inundated now. They're in Ireland on tour, I think. He's going to get hit in the press about it. So, look, he's going to have to head this off and say, look, if the window closes and he's here, he's a Manchester United player, and he's going to fall in line. Like I said, that needs to be front and centre and direct and transparent, because otherwise the toxicity from the fan base regards this whole Rashford thing will just blow up. And it'll distract from what should be a good season for United.
Yeah, I'm going to head to Lou in a moment, but I've just got a text from James who said, Leopards don't change their spots. Rashford is the last bastion of the Pogba-Lingard clique that was so damaging for the dressing room. Louis, do you agree with that assessment of Marcus Rashford, or is that harsh?
I'm so on the fence about this guy, honestly. It depends which version of Rashford comes back. If it's the version that we know is somewhere in there, then obviously fans are very fickle. If he comes on and we're 2-0 down and he knocks in a hat-trick, I'm sure everyone will hate to admit it, but we'd all welcome him back with open arms. But the point I wanted to make is what concerns me is you mentioned before about Carrick sitting him down and saying, look, if you're late for training, you're gone. If you give me a bad look, if I take you off, you're gone. For £1 million a month, that shouldn't even be a conversation. That should just be how you work.
That's the way the world nowadays. That, unfortunately, that is just the way it is. And you rarely get people in between a certain age group that will look you in the eye nowadays. Yeah. They won't want to. So I think you're better off just fronting it all. And you've got to do that with Marcus. And look, he's a human being, and he's obviously made mistakes, and he's obviously burnt a lot of bridges there. But if he sat down in a press conference right now and said, look, I have to apologise for some of my behaviour in the past, and all I can ask for is...
That players got that in them.
But they should. They should. Because it was my son. My son's 20, 21. If he acted like a D-head... stuff, then I haven't raised you right. So somebody needs to have a word with him, and he needs to be transparent and come out and say something.
Great call, Louis. Gary is a Manchester United fan. Gary, where do you stand on Rashford returning to your club?
Wow. Yeah, a little bit different opinion to the other two guys, I'll be honest with you.
No, that's fair enough, mate.
Yeah, I'm a bit older, mate, so we've all made mistakes in life, haven't we?
Yep.
I think. And fans are very fickle. If he bangs in 15 goals this season, he'll be there. Everyone's going to change their mind, aren't they? I think give him a second chance. I totally agree with what you said before, Darren, about there's no way you can be late for training, etc., etc. It's non-negotiables. But he's got a talent. The kid's got a talent. We were all praising him when he was younger, when he was coming through. He
does. He does. And 30 years of my work life, goes on the street, I've never been late for anything. Never. I'm always like an hour early, and I've drilled that into my kids. And I hear a player earning millions of pounds when the fan base are breaking their asses to pay their mortgages and buy tickets. I think it's unforgivable. And I would like the player to come out and address that and just say, immature, did stupid stuff.
I made some mistakes.
I made a lot of mistakes. And I've got to make that up to the United fan base. So.
Gary, can I say something to you, because I'm with you on this. And I'm not a Manchester United fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I respect it as a club, and I respect its heritage and where it stands in English football and world football. I'd like to see Marcus Rashford return to his roots. I'd like to see him performing at his best in the Premier League. And I agree, we all make mistakes. And Marcus Rashford, despite the money he's on, despite some of the behaviours he's...
Would you take him at Forest?
Of course I would. But despite all of those things, there's a lot of pressure on him, and he's a human being. However, having said that, I think Darragh's absolutely right. There needs to be an element of contrition and accountability from him, where he comes forward and whether it's on an Instagram post or whether it's sat next to Michael Carrick, there needs to be something from him to give to fans like Ash, who called up earlier, and kind of understandably is absolutely seething.
Yeah, I agree with that. And maybe that has gone on behind the scenes with Carrick. We don't know. We're not privy to these conversations,
Yeah, no, fair point.
Let's just see how this plays out, I think. But as a Man United fan, if the guy's wearing a red shirt, I'm going to support him.
Yeah, well said. And I wouldn't expect anything less from Manchester United fans. Great call, Gary. Time for one more. Martin is a United fan. Martin, where do you stand on this? We've had it all so far in this conversation. Do you want him back at the club, Marcus Rashford?
No, is a simple answer.
But what I'd like to know, if Darragh could answer this question, I never understand with football, the negotiations take so long. If Marcus Rashford wanted to play for Barcelona and he's 26 million, 28 million, and the thing that's putting them off is 350 grand in wages. If they pay him 200 grand in wages, if United give him a lump sum of roughly about 8 million to Marcus from that money, or if they want to spread the cost, 150 grand a week for the next 2 years, why can't the deal be done?
Because I would say that there's some variables in those numbers you've used that people aren't offering that kind of money. And I would imagine, I don't know what, mindset his agents are in. Do they want more than 350 grand a week? You're assuming that he wants to join Barca or whatever club on the same money. A lot of these players nowadays go, well, my next contract's got to be more money, even if it was 350 a week. So I honestly don't think Barcelona wanted to sign him.
Yeah.
I think they probably said to United, listen, if you want to release him, we'll take over his contract. They tried to take the mick. And I would imagine United have said not a chance.
Great call. Thank you.
Brilliant call.
Martin, because I think he gets to a point that normal football fans who don't earn such eye-watering
There's no
money.
logic in any of this.
But the question, I think the sentiment is absolutely bang on. Marcus, you're a local... And this might, again, I'm not putting this on Rashford because, as you say, there's agents, there's other people involved in these things. But surely there can come a point where a player just stands up and says, do you know what? I want to play for Barcelona, so I'll take a pithy 200 grand a week.
Not a chance. Doesn't work like
Why
that.
doesn't football...
Doesn't work on the lower level, the higher level, because you got players who, obviously, they'll say to you it's a short career, so they need every pound note. You've got some of them controlled by agents where the player isn't even privy to it, and the agent wouldn't even put that to them. I would like some of the players of this generation to grow a set of cojones, to control their own destiny, to actually realise, here's a message for all players out there. Agents work for you. You're the boss. It's not the other way around. But you're all acting, like a bunch of bedwetters and letting your agents basically run you. That's the problem with football.
Well, it's difficult to disagree, particularly when you see the sums of money that are available for football players. Just on this, I know we've got to go to a break, but I can't help but wonder, surely there comes a point where football can't continually grow like this? Or do you think that it's possible? Just this dream of constant growth? Sure, we don't know what's going to happen in the world. We don't know what's going to happen to the economy. Surely we can't keep paying these eye-watering sums of players. And then maybe there comes a point where players start taking their destiny into their own hands and saying, well, actually, I'm fine on 100 grand a week, 50 grand a week, playing for Manchester United for a club that I've been brought up with.
I agree. I guess the argument from players' point of view is that they're the talent and they generate all the revenue, And Rashford and his camp would say, United didn't need to give us that contract, but they did. So whoever gave them that contract, obviously sitting here probably listening and cringing at times because it didn't work out. The argument to that would be United thought they had an asset that would be worth 100, 120 million. He'd be an Mbappe. He'd be worth that kind of dough. You start seeing the figures yesterday that Vinicius Junior's getting at Real Madrid and the figures Mbappe are getting. And that's why I knew then no Premier League team could have afforded Vinicius Junior and it was a load of nonsense. These people are earning £1 million a week.
Yeah.
So at what point do you go, and you puke on yourself over the money that's been talked about?
Yeah.
But that's the game. And others would argue you got actors, you get 25, 30 million to act for 3 months in a movie. So if someone's willing to pay it, you're going to take it. All I'd say about sports people, and particularly footballers, is control your narrative and your destiny. Max made a really relevant point. If Marcus Rashford wanted to go to Barcelona, how old is Marcus now?
He's 28.
Well, here's the good news. Barca play quite a few veterans all to the age of 35. If Marcus had had common sense, he'd have gone to Barca, he'd have thought in his head and gone, I've got 2 years left on my contract. Nobody's given me 150 grand in year 3 or 4 on any contract. No one in the Premier League wants to do that. Man United don't want to do it. I'd go to Barca and go, give me a 5-year deal and I'll walk to you now. Whatever, and forget about United having to give me any money because that's what's obviously holding the deal up. I would walk to you now. But then you got 5 years at one of the biggest football clubs in the world. But maybe Barca just didn't want him.
Well, hopefully the landscape changes and we can see a little bit more of that players taking control of their own destinies and not necessarily...
We need it to happen.
Yeah, without a doubt. You're listening to Max Scott and Darragh MacAnthony in for Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com.
Your thoughts on Vinicius Junior? Then Arsenal losing out in that. Were you hopeful or were you doubtful?
Do you know what? I was a little bit in the middle, really. I thought, look, he's a player that would be certainly improve Arsenal. There's no doubt about that. He's got so much talent. But also, he's at Real Madrid, like Andy Townsend said. Why would you want to leave Real Madrid, as Andy says? But whether he wanted a different change of lifestyle and whatever, whether he wanted to go to London, I don't know. But I think what he's done, he's played the market, isn't he? So he's gone, right, we know Arsenal are interested. His agent's probably going to Real Madrid. Well, Arsenal, we're thinking about going to Arsenal, and they've panicked a little bit, probably got an unbelievable deal now, 6-year contract. And he's gone, right, okay, yeah, I'll stay then. Yeah. Done. And so he's played both sides, really, which a lot of agents do, a lot of players do as well. But I was always 50-50, really. If he comes to the club, great. But if he doesn't, it's not the end of the world.
Absolutely, you move on from it. I mean, it's absolutely dead now. He is staying at Real Madrid for 6 years, as you mentioned. But, you know, how important was that to get that idea that Arsenal were starting to flirt with world-class players, with somebody who would be a marquee signing?
You've got to do that. You've got to do that.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, no, you've got to do that.
They've done it. The champions got a final. You know, why wouldn't you?
And the club's in a really good position at the moment with finances and whatever. I mean, Josh Kroenke's really stepped it up another level really now and he trusts the manager Arteta to say, right, you know, we're going to really go with him and see what he needs.
Sport News.
Good morning. With your headlines, I'm Sinead Garvan. A record number of migrants, 230, are thought to have arrived in a single boat across the Channel last night. It's as new research shows small boat crossings have changed the UK's attitude towards immigration. YouGov has found 43% think it's mostly bad, up 10% from 10 years ago. Chris MacDonald is the business minister.
I don't think anybody's been particularly happy with the level of immigration that we inherited from the previous government. And that's why we've reduced regular immigration by 82%. And we've also reduced small boat crossings to a level not seen since 2020.
More areas of the UK are expected to be officially declared in drought later. It's as the fifth heat wave of the year arrives this week, with temperatures reaching up to 36 degrees. Thames Water paid its finance chief a £1 million signing on fee last month. That's despite the company being in £20 million worth of debt. It says it was following legal obligations. And the sales of convertible cars have plummeted in the last 20 years. The Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders says they're down by 90%. Former Top Gear presenter Richard Hammond, who has a soft-top Porsche, says it's down to the weather.
We don't get much good weather, and when we do, well, if you look around towns and cities and in the countryside in the UK, when the weather's good, everybody runs out and gets sunburn.
Talk Sport, sports headlines with Bostik. For professional grade sealants with easy application and a perfect finish, pros trust Bostik.
The Infantino saga's reignited, and Everton and Crystal Palace are closing in on Dwight McNeil and Brennan Johnson's swap. Will has more at midday.
Morning, Max Scott, Darragh MacAnthony, in for Jim and Simon here on talkSPORT. Thank you for joining us. Just with you in the studio, Darragh. I mean, I'm amazed at the amount of text we get. That's almost sort of like Q&A from an owner. And I would just want to go to this question. Sure. Because I do sometimes think about this. It says, morning, gents, great show. Gaz in Manchester. I do hope you read this one because it's baffling me with the mechanics. On the topics of contracts, Darragh, can you educate me on why players agree personal terms before the clubs allegedly agree fees? Sounds a bit back to front to me.
Not at all, because you could spend 3 weeks negotiating with a football club and the player won't come to you. So what's the point? You need to find out, will the player come?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's where a lot of it goes on behind doors, and it's not ethical, it's not this, but it goes on at every club. people who are signing my players will have already spoken to my players' agents.
And what? Forgive me if this is a stupid question, but
Sure.
how do you then distinguish between that and tapping players up?
It's the same thing, really, isn't it? So at the end of a season,
So it's murky waters.
It's a murky water. So we'll ring an agent in May or June, and what have you got coming up this summer? And they'll say, we have these players, and we'll give them our target list. And they'll start throwing names. Then you go, well, they're owned by a club, whatever club has owned them. And they go, what wage are they on? The agent will tell you. Well, they're on 1,800 quid a week. Great, okay. Will they be interested coming to Peterborough? Well, what's Peterborough willing to pay? Well, we give them 1,900 quid a week. Now, if we can agree a deal with this club, will the player come? Yes. Some agents will go, no, not a chance they'll come to Peterborough. That happens to every club up and down the country. So then, once we know that, we will engage to try and either buy them, acquire them, and do whatever. Now, if I go all out and spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks trying to do a deal with a club, and then finally I get permission to speak to an agent, a player, and they just go within 2 seconds, we're not coming to Peterborough. I've just spent 3 weeks of my life wasting my time.
Yeah.
So it's murky, but it goes on at every club.
Great answer to a great question from Gaz in Manchester. Thank you for that.
Thanks,
Keep your
Gaz.
calls and texts coming in. 03717 223344 on WhatsApp, 81089 on messages. But time now to catch up on the latest odds thanks to our friends at BetMGM.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. We're ready for the action. Are you? Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18 plus. Gambleaware.org.
Delighted to say we're joined now by Sean Martin from BetMGM to look at today's top sporting events, discuss the very latest odds. Can we start, please, Sean? Good morning, by the way, mate. Can we start with the Scottish Premiership? Of course, Celtic just look like it's going to be the same old as we see in the SPL. They're going to win the league.
You paying out already, Sean, are you?
Yeah, well, exactly. Are you paying out on that already?
Morning, lads. Not quite yet, yeah, but yesterday was a bonanza of Scottish football. All of last season's top six played yesterday. Hearts, start with them, thrashed Dundee United, and that's a Dundee United side that just drew with and arguably should have beaten Rangers. Remember, they thrashed them 4-0 at Tynecastle and looked much, much better in doing so. Rangers, I mean, you'll have heard already, they lost 2-1 at home to Hibs. Third season in a row, Hibs have gone to Ibrox and won, incidentally. Rangers did dominate, but they struggled to convert it to goals again. A couple of big games coming up for Darragh MacAnthony, you have to say. The second leg against Jagiellonia, the Polish side, on Thursday, and then it's the League Cup on Sunday against St Mirren, who are the holders and the only team other than Celtic to have won both their opening league games. It's still early doors, of course, but it can get on top of you in Glasgow very quickly, so you'd think 2 wins probably required there. As for Celtic, well, the game yesterday was probably, credit where it's due, probably the best full game performance I've seen from Celtic in certainly a year, if not longer. It helped that Neil McCann set Kilmarnock out to attack, as that's not the case with a lot of teams up here. But yeah, hopefully see more performances like that as things gel more. Obviously, in the background, you were talking about transfers there. There's still plenty of talk that Alistair Johnston and Arnie Engels might leave Celtic. They're two key players. Johnston's been heavily linked with Everton, and Engels, we've actually currently got him 8-25, so very much odds on to go to West Ham before the window shuts. If one or both go without replacements before the start of the Champions League qualifiers next Wednesday, it is potentially damaging. Johnston actually went off though at half-time yesterday with an injury, so we'll need to see what the news is like on that first and foremost. But guys, look, the upshot of yesterday in terms of the title race is ultimately Celtic are in a shade to 2-5 to retain the title. Rangers have went out a smidge to 2-1, and Hearts the exact same price as Friday despite that 4-0 win. They're 14-1.
It's fascinating to hear from Sean that the odds that Engels goes to the Championship from Celtic.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Yeah, but you say Championship, he's going to a Premier League club, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be fair.
I get that.
So
but on the conversation that we were kind of having on Friday about the SPL, it's an indictment on the league, not on Celtic Football Club.
Yeah, look, you were saying before we came on air talking about the lack of competitiveness in the Scottish League. Was it 15 of the last 16 years Celtic winning the title? Last year was the most exciting. So I'm sure they know they have to fix a few things up there to make it more competitive. This idea where fans write in about Celtic Rangers leaving, I would never want that to happen. I would never want all the other clubs in Scotland to suffer because that happened. I mean, I hate when I see.
If that happened, would it have to be all in one?
Absolutely.
You have a British Football League.
You can't do that. It's like saying, well, the Premier League are going to just like pay off the EFL. You know, you just can't do that. You know, the Scottish have their own league. They're proud of whatever else. So I hate when I see people talking, well, let's move them into the Premier League or let's move.
It's almost patronising.
It is. It's ridiculous. And it's so disrespectful to, so many other Scottish clubs up there who have hundreds and thousands of employees. But anyway, look, about the whole Scottish thing. So, I'm looking at it going, it's not a good start for McGuinness. it's obviously he's under pressure. What are the odds on him losing his job in the first 10 games?
I'd need to get that priced up for you. I wouldn't go. I wouldn't even go that negative yet. It's so.
Well, it happened with Russell
early.
Martin, didn't it? I mean, he
It did. What I will say is, I think Derek McInnes has got a lot more credit in the bank than Russell Martin did in that role, because of his attachment to Rangers, but also just because of his managerial career to date. I think, yes, he's not started well, but I do think he's got a wee bit more goodwill there than Russell Martin maybe did.
And I think the way, we'll move on from McInnes in a minute, but the way that he came out yesterday, I think he was absolutely right. He was like, we need to shut out the outside noise. We're much better than we're giving credit for. They had 75% possession, 25 plus shots. Hibs had 2 on target and scored. It was just one of those games. Yeah. And so I hope, not just for Rangers, but for the sake of the title race this season, that does change.
Big time.
Talking internationally, though, what are the next managerial odds for the Scotland manager? Of course, it's still vacant, it's still open. We've seen so many names flying around. What are the odds suggesting about what's next for Scotland?
So over the weekend, reports started kind of emerging that the SFA is close to appointing Steve Clarke's successor. He obviously left the role mid-World Cup after Scotland's elimination. I remember actually coming on here at the time with Paul and Andy, it was actually, and talking through the candidates on the odds list at that point. So that would have been, mid-June. Ange Postecoglou, who was the early favourite. I didn't quite get that at the time. I was just like, why would he bother, essentially? And then obviously, since then, he's gone to Al Nassr. But you also had the likes of David Moyes, Roberto Martinez, even before Portugal got knocked out, was on there. Further back, Duncan Ferguson, Alex Neil, Sean Maloney was actually on there as well, but he signed on to stay with Martin O'Neill at Celtic, clearly. I actually think, to link it back to the first topic there, I actually think Derek McInnes would have been the main shout if Rangers hadn't got in there first. But as I said to Paul and Andy that day, something in my bones told me that they would eventually opt for a continuity appointment, and sure enough, having been 8-1 at that point in mid-June, the new favourite at 17-20. So again, odds on now is Stephen Naismith, who was part of Steve Clarke's backroom staff, lads.
What do you make of that, Darragh? Sometimes that continuity can help. It's been great. Although, yes, the World Cup was a bit of a disappointment. They only got a win against Haiti, but what he achieved at Scotland was brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't listen. I'm Irish. We haven't been to a World Cup for a while. I'm not every great number 2 makes a great number 1. So that would, I would say, concern fans. And the fact that Clarke was so good at qualifying for those big tournaments and they hadn't had anyone before him, now you're going with the number 2.
Lack of ambition, maybe, from the SF?
Maybe not lack of ambition, maybe lack of availability. Availability of what they need and what they want. So they're thinking, look, let's just do this and let's see how it goes in the qualifying for the Euros, and we can always change course then in regards to the World Cup.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes sense for them.
As a proud Scotsman, Sean, is there anyone that just as a fan you would like to see in the seat?
I mean, first of all, I agree with Darragh totally there. Steve Clarke's qualifying record, I know the tournament record was not there. He arguably didn't go after it enough in tournaments, but no tournaments for 23 years. Steve Clarke comes along and it's 3 in 6 years, so you cannot fault the guy for that. In terms of Stephen Naismith, I mean, first of all, I'd actually said in that same conversation with Paul and Andy, I quite liked the thought of Neil Lennon. I know he's not Scottish, but on the list of potentially actually gettable managers, his CV stood out more than the kind of names round about him, I thought. In terms of Stephen Naismith, I think he already acknowledged, he understood from the SFA that he'd be involved somewhere, regardless of what happened with a new manager. He said himself, I think last month, that the next manager should be experienced. Now, he himself is vastly experienced as a player, 50-odd caps, won plenty at Rangers, played the Premier League for years with Everton. But managerially, he's just got that year and a half or so at Hearts, and most of that was in the second tier. So I'm not sure on that front. But look, if he's been asked, I don't know if you've any experience with him, but I think he's that type of character that if he has been asked, he will have full belief that he will rise to that. And I mean, the Nations League starts in, I think, 6 weeks or so. So time is getting on slightly with that. But I do take Darragh's point that that is almost a buffer, because you then get another qualification after it.
Absolutely. Sean, brilliant stuff as always. Thank you so much, mate. That was a look at the latest odds, all thanks to BetMGM. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Keep things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18 plus, gambleaware.org.
No smoke without fire. Of course not. He is interested in the Arsenal project.
Arsenal
if he's to leave Real Madrid.
Arsenal going for Vinny Jr. is like me sending Rihanna a message on Instagram saying that I'd love you to come to the Bullring in Birmingham. I want to take you around Birmingham on a date. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, he's not leaving Real Madrid to come to Arsenal, one league title in over 20 years, can't win a Champions League in their whole existence. He's not going to come to Arsenal. He's used Arsenal to get an extra 5, 6, 7, 8 million pound a year, and he's going to sign a new contract at Arsenal. Sign a new contract at Real Madrid. Simple what he's doing. Arsenal been used.
Did you ever shoot your shot with Rihanna, though? Did you ever do it?
I might have. Yeah, I might have. That's private business. I might have.
But the point is, we know that Arsenal have made a go at Vinicius Jr., so they've tried.
And maybe I tried, and it didn't work out.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, but it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out for Arsenal, is it?
You make me cringe.
No, one league title in over 20 years. Never won the Champions League. Can't sit at the big table of the Champions League winning clubs like Villa, Nottingham Forest, Celtic. And you think you're going to go and sign Vinny Jr., the fan base that Vinny Jr.'s got in South America because he plays for Real Madrid.
It's not.
Rodri's doing everything he can probably to get out of Manchester City to go to Real Madrid. Haaland will go to Real Madrid at some point in his career.
It's not dead yet.
Good morning, you're listening to talkSPORT 10 till 1 slot. Jim and Simon, of course, are away. It's me, Max Scott, alongside the brilliant Darragh MacAnthony with you until tomorrow, actually. And if you were listening back last Friday, you might remember the fascinating insight Darragh gave us around some of the work that he has done, not just with, his staff and academy players, but with former players, and how he supported them in the process of sort of developing their lives beyond football. Now, the issue of support for young players has come to the fore again, in fact, after a fascinating interview that The Athletic did with Brandon Williams. I'm sure you'll all know the former United left-back who sort of burst onto the scene under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He debuted for United, his boyhood club, at 19 years old back in 2019. He went on to play 51 times for the club, but since 2021... he's just made 42 appearances over 5 years for various different clubs. And last year, it was well documented, he was given a 14-month prison sentence, suspended for 2 years for dangerous driving after causing a crash while speeding at 99 miles per hour. He has since spent pre-season training with Rotherham United, doesn't yet know if he is going to be offered a contract, but he's been speaking to The Athletic about rebuilding his life. He says, Darragh, I've learned from my mistakes. I take full ownership, theme that keeps coming across in our shows and our conversations. Full ownership of everything that's happened to me. That's why I always say to myself, I got myself in this mess. I'm going to get myself out of it. I've let a lot of people down, to be honest, and I want to prove a lot of people wrong as well. That's the one thing that's left to do in my life, to get back onto the football pitch and show what I can do. We live in an environment, whether it's in the media, on social media, in life in general, where we're incredibly quick to judge. Now, what the way he behaved was unacceptable, but he's admitted that, and he's been speaking to The Athletic honestly about getting his life back on track. That is just a great sign for him. Right?
I love that. And look, you know, he would probably sit here now and go, I regret getting paid 20 odd grand a week when I was a teenager.
Well, he says he wishes that there was something in place where a part of his wage was kept in a savings account until he was older.
Which I've always argued that we should have something in place where, you know, 17, 18, 19-year-olds don't earn that kind of money. And maybe if you have to pay them that kind of money, it's kept in some sort of a trust that when they're 23, 24, because the human brain doesn't stop developing until you're 25, I believe. So you're still quite young mentally, so that they could cope. Like, if you do a trust or a will for your family, and I've done one for my kids, they don't get anything until they're after they're 25, you know, on purpose. And I've done that on purpose, do you know what I mean? Because they're so immature mentally. So I love the fact this kid's come out and said that. I hope Rotherham give him a contract. I hope he wins one, because he has made mistakes. And, you know, like a lot of us did when we were young. We were all young and dumb at some stage in our life, and it was all a bit too much too soon for him.
But we've seen lots of players go off the rails. And I don't want to name names because we don't want to sort of like...
Max, I signed loads of them. I've signed loads of players who were released, kicked out, discarded. It was one of my early model traits. We wrote down, it was like, you know, go after the discarded. People who'd been at Premier League academies who got knocked out and went non-league. And now they had a chip on their shoulder to climb back up. It's the reason I signed them, because they had that chip on their shoulder.
Now, nobody, whether it's the Premier League, the EFL, nobody can legislate for human behaviour. There's always going to be humans that make mistakes regardless of the support in place. But is it fair to say that there isn't enough support, particularly for these young players who are on
It's getting better. It's getting better. Football clubs now have lots of safeguarding. They've got lots of officers. They've got a lot of people. You now have ex-players, like I talked about Jermaine Anderson, my ex-player is a shrink, a therapist now who players can play couple £100 an hour to talk to about his experiences and their issues and everything. So nowadays there's a lot more help out there for an academy. The academy system's now in place. To be fair, again, the safeguarding, everything is like, yes, you're ticking boxes, but at the same time, I feel players now have a lot more there. I also encourage parents to do their jobs. And I have to say, too many parents don't do their jobs well enough.
It's interesting.
And I have to say that.
It's interesting you say this, Darragh, because one of the most fascinating parts of the interview, I read it this morning on the way into work. He said that during COVID, he was still living with his mum and dad in a rough area in Manchester. And he was going on these Zoom calls. And all these players had swimming pools and gyms in their houses. He said he was lifting suitcases for weights. And when he came back from COVID, he didn't feel that he was, you know, where the other players were at. So he moved out. And it was when he moved away from his mum and dad that, you know, negative influences and people hanging around his house that had an impact on him. That family unit's still really important, even if you're being paid 50 grand a week, for example, at a young age.
Massively important, you know, and you know, I love my children, and they're not perfect either. But I still, you know, I'm that dad who sits at the dinner table and plays out worst case scenarios. If that happened, if this happened, what would you do? And put all those exercises in place. I judge my children on their behaviour. Me and my wife once had a conversation and said, we've got 3 kids. Our greatest job is to make sure they're fantastic human beings. That's it. That's it. Nothing else matters. Are they fantastic human beings? Too many of these players is too much, too soon, too quick, and it leads them to be not fantastic human beings for a period of their life. We have to change that.
Now, you say that football's much better at this, and I don't doubt you on that, but this is sadly a story that continually happens. So what else could football do? And again, I go back to this point. We need individual humans have individual accountability and responsibility, and you can't blame the system. And I think we live in a society where so often we want an excuse for our own mess. So in light of that, football still can do more, surely.
Well, yes, we can, but you can take a horse to water. You know, as the saying goes, you can't make them drink the water. So we can provide a platform, we can educate them. We can make sure they stay on the right side of the law. They try and do the right things in life, but we can only take it so far.
But specifically, what can be done?
At some point, players have to take accountability. I think what's really important is that we have to get more control over what goes on with agents and how they control players and the stuff that goes on in academies. And I'll give you an example. We have some really talented kids in our Tier 2 academy, and you're not allowed to have an agent until you're past the age of 16, 17. But I know for a fact there are agents knocking on parents' door of 12, 13 and 14-year-old players. And that goes on all the time.
What are they saying?
They're saying basically, we are going to represent you when he turns 16, 17. We can't legally do it, but we're going to guide his career for the next few years. And then obviously I don't know what they're giving parents. I don't know what goes on, but I can only imagine what happens.
The world of agents seems incredibly unregulated. It feels like a wild.
There's a lot of good agents, don't get me wrong. I'm not always bashing agents, but I do know this goes on in academies. And I'll give you another example. So you've got now 15, 16-year-olds in our academy, in every academy, who are getting tapped up by agents. Doors are being knocked on. There are groupies hanging around games on Saturday mornings to see who can land a footballer, who then those boys can get in trouble, obviously, the route they can go down there. So there's so much going on in a young player's life, never mind the money they're earning and the way they live their life. So that's where we as a club, the parents, family, everyone has to come together and go, look, what's best for this young man? How do we develop him? How do we make sure his character, his personality is right? And more importantly, be there as a sounding board if something does go wrong. Because, what's the percentage of the amount of young academy players that become pros and go on to be super successful?
Who is responsible for these young players' lives? Because like you say, you talk about some of these rogue agents and the tapping up and the influence that can have. You've then got the individual clubs, you've got the FA, you've got the Premier League and the EFL,
PFA, you've got everything.
Do you think there's an element in which some of this is kind of, that's their problem?
Well, for us,
that's the manager's problem, or that's the academy's problem.
Well, I'll say this. I've had, at 15, 16s, under 18s, even the under 21s, my coaches are really tuned in. And because they're young coaches, they're a little bit closer to that mindset of modern day young players.
But
it makes it easier.
I've got friends that work in coaching at elite football clubs, and often they feel that there's nothing that they can actually do. They're quite powerless, as much as they've got the right intentions and they can see the issues that maybe develop, whether it's parents and agents or whatever.
We did away with a lot of the disciplinary things that used to be good for young players, where they used to clean people's boots. They used to nowadays the modern liberal youngsters would go, you can't do that, it's slave labour, blah, blah, blah. We used to have 14 to 17-year-olds clean the training ground, clean the dressing rooms, clean boots. They would take a first team pro's boots and be in charge of his gear. They'd take the manager's boots. They do all this. I thought that was great. When I was a kid, I was doing every job under the sun. Do you know what I mean? Getting paid like £2 an hour. Yeah. I never moaned about that. Certain part of society, we've taken away those things because we're not allowed to do it anymore. And now there's a minimum wage. Now there's this. Now there's that.
No, rather than minimum wage.
No. What I'm trying to say to you is that now you're having to pay 15-year-olds for maybe if they clean a pair of boots for an hour. Now, all I'm saying is I get where you're coming from, Max. I'm not having a go at minimum wage. What I'm trying to say is that the things we did with younger players years gone by in football made them a bit tougher.
Yeah.
Nowadays, if you threw a pair of boots at a youngster and told him to clean them, he throw them back at you.
Well, they might say, well, why am I doing this? The player's got a deal. Yeah. I have. Some of these players already got
and when am I getting paid for this? Whereas in the old days, a player getting the captain's boots, he'd go home and tell his parents like it was the greatest gift in the world. I'm in charge of the captain's skipper's boots. I'm going to make sure they're the cleanest boots. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it prepared them. There was a certain way. And I'm not trying to be old school and traditionalist and, we've got to do it this way and not that way. There's a common sense, common ground to it all. I was
just going to say.
And far too many of these young people aren't ready for the real world.
I couldn't agree more. And for what it's worth, I would say fair play to Brandon Williams for trying to get his career back on track. And hopefully he does get that contract that he so desperately wants to try and rebuild his career and prove everybody wrong that he's made the right decisions in his career. You're listening to Max Scott and Darragh MacAnthony in for Jim White and Simon Jordan. Up next, we're asking the question, and I'm interested to hear what Darragh's got to say about this. Do owners really listen to fan forums? That next. Barcelona are now leading the race to sign Rodri from Manchester City, notwithstanding the loss that would be to City in a new era under Enzo Maresca. What's the latest on that? And is it the case that Real Madrid have dropped the ball here? Because it seemed to be, reading reports, that Real Madrid were in the driving seat with this one.
Yeah, Rodri wanted Real Madrid earlier in the window, and Florentino Perez hadn't decided what kind of midfielder he was going for, which is why several names were linked, including Enzo Fernandez, and Real had to issue a statement saying we've had no contact with Enzo Fernandez. Jose Mourinho came in. Finally, they got the mandate from Perez to start negotiating financially, but Barca have basically hijacked this, although some sources say Barca were there even before the window opened, and it was Real that kind of steamrolled in. And ultimately, Rodri, for family reasons, wants to go to Spain, but we've got a fascinating scenario now. Man City want to keep. Pep Guardiola never used to stand in players' ways, especially senior ones that had been long-serving and loyal to the club. But Enzo Maresca's new, and of course, if it's his say, he'll go to his board and say, keep him. If he doesn't renew, we'll let him leave on a free transfer in 2027. And now Barca are going to accelerate and bid, and they have full player buy-in. So Rodri wants Barcelona over Real Madrid, and I think there's a strong chance that this one happens. Man City are going to add another midfielder. Ayoub Boadi advanced talks. They've got other targets as well. Elliot Anderson has already come in. And in essence, it's whether City say Rodri deserves this move and follow that Pep Guardiola approach, or if they double down and say Enzo Maresca doesn't want him to leave, so we're going to make it really difficult.
talkSPORT Sports Update with NordVPN. Now with built-in next-gen antivirus that automatically detects malicious links, websites and files.
Good afternoon, here are your sports headlines. I'm Will Hobbs. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos could be a co-owner of Liverpool as soon as next week. A consortium involving Bezos, Facebook co-founder Eduardo Zaffarin and former QPR owner Amit Bhatia is close to agreeing a 30% stake. It would be football's richest ever deal, one of them valuing Liverpool at $6 billion. Elsewhere, UEFA, CONCACAF and the Asian Football Confederation are trying to keep pressure on Gianni Infantino. In an open letter, they've accused FIFA of a fundamental breach of trust and deception. Our correspondent Ben Jacobs says this is Infantino's chance to leave with dignity before he's pushed.
These three confederations are prepared not just to threaten boycott, which we know is the UEFA position, but also break away to organise tournaments themselves.
Elsewhere, talkSPORT understands Marcus Rashford is willing to attempt to revive his Manchester United career. He's linked up with his teammates for the first time since being loaned to Barcelona last summer. In the world of transfers, Everton and Crystal Palace are progressing on a swap deal involving Dwight McNeil and Brennan Johnson. Wrexham have agreed an £8 million fee with Sunderland for goalkeeper Anthony Patterson, and West Ham are keeping an eye on Jamie Vardy's situation as they look to sign a striker. And Andoni Iraola is worried his Liverpool players aren't fit enough to play his style of football when the Premier League returns. It's after the Reds lost to Monaco, throwing away a 2-goal lead for the second match in a row. Former Liverpool star Charlie Adam says there's work to be done.
A lot of things to work on for Liverpool again. Players coming back from World Cup. Lexi McAllister only comes back today. And then ultimately, I still think they need strength and depth, and they'll need to bring in at least 3 or 4 signings in before the sort of window closes, and the Premier League's only 2 weeks away now.
There's more, as ever, at talksport.com.
talkSPORT News.
A record number of migrants crossed the channel in one boat overnight, and Chessington World of Adventures has had to close today because of a lack of water. Emma has more in half an hour.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. Heatwave outside, oven inside. Stay cool this summer with a free aircon check. Book online or visit your local QuickFit today.
Dry and warm for most today with some patchy cloud and sunny spells. A few showers possible in the northeast of Scotland.
Good afternoon, you're listening to White and Jordan with me, Max Scott, alongside Darragh MacAnthony. Still to come, we're going to get into Arsenal's pre-season and whether there should be any concern about some of the issues they had defensively in some of their pre-season matches, as well as looking ahead to the return of the EFL, which starts live on talkSPORT later this week. But we're starting the afternoon, myself and Darragh, with the question, do owners listen to fan forums, or is it just a pretty little PR stunt? Now, the reason, Darragh, we're asking this, and I don't know if you've seen it, because there has been a statement from the chair of the Manchester United Youth Supporters Club that's gone viral online. This is a young man called Luca Black, who has resigned from his position as the chair of the Man United Youth Supporters Club, and he released an open letter of resignation from the fans forum, claiming it's no longer able to get across what supporters actually think and feel to the people that are making the decisions. In his letter, he says this is about whether the forum itself still has the power to do the job it exists to do. I don't believe it does anymore. There was a period when I believe change was possible. When Richard Arnold became CEO, he did something his successor still doesn't. He sat in the room with us every meeting. Fan engagement generally improved. We spoke about the cheaper concessions, more youth season tickets at fair prices. Then Ineos arrived, and it turned out to be a lie. Luca then ended his letter by saying Manchester United is in danger, not just on the pitch, but in its relationship with the people who've carried it for generations. I'm fascinated. This is obviously an issue specifically with Manchester United, but I think we see this wider across the game. As a football owner, what do you make of football fan forums and the role they can have in a football club?
Yeah, I've got no issue with them, and I've done forums with fans. So look, fans are the power. They're basically the custodians of the club. They're the lifeblood of every football club, and without them, we're nothing. But at the same time, football is a business. We've said that now, and 99% of clubs lose millions and millions of pounds. So unfortunately, you need the big bad, owners like us that will pay the bills and whatever. My advice to United, whatever club, and I said this the other day. I spoke to the Sheffield Wednesday owner, who's a great guy. Just be front and centre, be transparent, talk to fans, tell them the truth. So I get his comments. It's at the moment it's his view. We're not hearing the alternative view. So I don't react like you guys would react. I got it sent this morning in the production notes. Look at this thing. This has gone viral. Blah 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 blah. Okay, fine. I read it and I go, right, that's his view. Whereas the other view, because there's always he said, she said, and then there's kind of in the middle the truth. So I couldn't speculate as regards to how United have handled this. I'm just seeing what he's written down. I think taking yourself out of something when you want to make change and giving up on making change, that's sad, because the only way you're going to affect and make change is being inside everything as best you can. And I get his note on Twitter and social media. That's the modern way of the world. You hope these things go viral and it creates outrage and the media talk about it. I'm not sure that's going to make any change. But like I always said, my advice to every owner is just be transparent and honest.
But I guess as a fan, maybe, yes, fans are very powerless in the way that their football clubs are run, but in writing an honest statement about your experience of being on an advisory board and the lack of transparency and feeling that fans aren't listened to.
I get it.
I do think he raises the point about how powerless fans are in the running of their football club. Now, there is an argument. Well, you're fans. You're not there to run a football club.
Sure.
But for me, there isn't necessarily, particularly some of these big clubs and how expensive it is, there isn't necessarily a happy medium in terms of whether it's the price of tickets. And I know that's something you feel very strongly about because you know about the business of it.
Yep.
Surely fans can be better treated by football clubs generally, particularly in the Premier League when it costs.
I think they can be better treated by every football club, but I also think it's that you can get exasperated with some of your fans. I've been guilty of that, where I've got exasperated with some of the fans that are coming at me, and it's unfair with some of the stuff I feel they're coming at me and the way they come at me. I was saying this to my dad last night. I was saying, I haven't seen my wife, my kids for 46 days. So I'm working. I don't get paid to work for Peter United. I obviously own shares in the club. I don't get to do my day job because everything is just this. This is what I do, running the football club, because I want it to be great. And I do that because I love the club and I want the fans to be proud of it. So when you get fans who come at you in a toxic way, and they come at you and they accuse you of things that A, you've never done, and B, you're not working hard enough when you haven't seen your family, and they're coming at you, and they're coming at you quite publicly as well, it can weigh you at times. It can irritate you at times. It can make you very angry at times. And I've been guilty of snapping. On social media and calling, some fans wet wipes, bedwetters, all that kind of thing when they've come at me in a really impolite way. But
I understand that,
yeah,
because there's a difference between that approach.
I know what you're going to say,
and what Luca is demonstrating, which I think is a professional, polite dressing down of the way that he sees the situation.
He's written it lovely. I don't know what went on in the meetings. I don't know how his interactions with the actual football club were. I don't know if he said something that maybe engulfed the relationship between. I'm not blaming him for anything. Relationships can be made and broken very quickly. I don't know what he says online about Man United. Now, I can't criticise Man United like everyone wants me to. And I'm a Liverpool fan, by the way, because I don't know the true specifics behind the scene. I don't know if they've put olive branches out there. I don't know if they've tried to organise meetings. I don't know if they've tried to do the things he says I don't know. I'm taking his word for it. I get fans get frustrated. The big bad world, you're seeing it all the time. You're seeing now Bezos and co are going to be buying a large minority stake in Liverpool. They ain't going to be sitting around any fans' tables anytime soon. So a lot of owners are faceless, and the CEOs maybe need to do more. Maybe not the CEOs, maybe the PR people, maybe the chief marketing officers need to, bring fans in, sit down more with them. But here's the truth and here's the reality. Every football club wants to win. Every football club wants to be the best of the best. And every football club wants to make their fans smile. However, along the way of doing that, they're going to punish their fans by charging too much money, selling too many shirts, bringing out too many shirts, ignoring their fans at time, not to the level of abuse, but that's what they're going to do along the way. The ones who are successful and bring in the success, there's a lot of silence from the moaning fans, those that moan, because you're winning. I guarantee you'll find some Arsenal fans who are dissatisfied with certain things about the way Arsenal are run, and Liverpool fans and every other Premier League club. This one's highlighted because it's one of the biggest clubs in the world.
I do think that there is a feeling amongst Manchester United fans, like Luca, and I know he's not alone, that feel they've lost the club that they once knew because they're being priced out, or because they're being moved from the places where they sat in certain parts of the stadium that have been replaced with hospitality. And there is this creeping feeling, and I know that, and I agree, it's the owners that run the club, they pay the money, so there has to be an element of respect and understanding, and it's not all owners are the big bad wolf, but there is this creeping sense amongst football fans that just care about their football club because it's part of their community, part of who they are, that they're maybe becoming secondary, and that ultimately lots of football club owners in the Premier League don't want normal average going fans because they don't pay as much as the tourist or the corporate boxes, etc.
And I suppose Radcliffe's been hammered quite a lot in the press. He tried to do the right thing and sat down for a lot of interviews, didn't he? He was quite public. He was quite,
But when he did that interview with Neville where he said we're about to be in the red, and then announced plans for $1 trillion stadium.
Okay, so he's a very approachable guy. Obviously, he tried to do the right thing. And obviously, maybe he said the old thing that wasn't right. And we've covered it last week with the women's stuff, the this and this guy. So I commend him for trying to do the right thing.
No, fair play.
Now he'd be thinking, well, I don't want to try and do the right thing because, again, I might say the right... Some people maybe aren't made to speak publicly, whatever else. So I don't know him personally, okay? He's gone in there. He's bought a chunk of one of the biggest clubs in the world. They haven't been very successful lately. He's trying to change that. He's trying to change the narrative. He's owned the club now, how long? 3 years? 4 years? He's
been long enough.
Longer? Okay, relatively still new, I would say, in ownership terms. I've been in football 20 years, So he's trying to build the best stadium the UK's ever seen. He's trying to return them to the top table. So time will tell how that works. He's got some really good people running that club now. I know that for a fact. And I guarantee you this stuff on the fan stuff will improve. I also guarantee you this. Top clubs like that know that the real salt of the earth fans, they need them.
Do they?
They do know it. They know it because the atmosphere. Go to Anfield. It's not just all the celebrities are floating in to watch the games or the people on holiday for a couple of days who are buying tickets. It's still the salt of the earth fans that make the atmosphere Anfield. Same at Old Trafford. And this new stadium they're building that might cost $1 billion, $2 billion, they're going to need to fill it. And you ain't going to get 80,000 tourists all the time filling it. You're still going to need the salt of the earth. So we still need to learn a lot with our fans. That goes for the biggest clubs in the world. That goes for my club too.
I hope that you're right in that case when it comes to Manchester United. On the other side, we have got a text from a fan, and I think this is an interesting point.
Sure.
The modern football fan is too self-entitled. They expect to influence decisions when they won't be paying the bills.
I agree with that too with some of them, not all of them. Some of the stuff and the comments thrown at me. Somebody said to me the other day, there was a comment by some idiot who'd said, if this window isn't good, this will ultimately be DMAC's whole 20 years ownership will be a failure. And somebody else went, a failure? They've won like 4 promotions, 3 trophies at Wembley, and they've been in the Championship more times in the last 20 years than the previous 20 years. What are you talking about, a failure? What, for one transfer window that's not busy? So I then get fans that come at me going in an aggressive way, house, but they're all aged between 19 and 29, and they're constantly feeling entitled. The idea that my son, who's 20, 21, would talk to somebody like that online and actually go to them in an aggressive manner, he's been brought up better.
Yeah. Well, no,
there is some entitlement there, yes.
I would agree, but I think there's probably a difference between the Premier League or legacy clubs like Manchester United and the way that their fans feel disconnected because of pricing, etc., and then maybe the EFL, because there's a slightly different dynamic there. There's less people, there's less staff. There's you see those comments, you hear those comments in the stadium when you're there. That's slightly different to these, huge multi-billionaires like Jim Ratcliffe. And this isn't necessarily just about Jim Ratcliffe, by the way. This is just about the way that Manchester United fans, I think lots of them feel that they're totally disconnected and disenfranchised, being moved around the stadium, being priced out, being told that their tickets out in when they haven't, and all of these things do affect fans. And I just wonder when they move into this new stadium whether fans are going to be able to afford that, because life isn't easy.
No, nobody can afford anything. I mean, you go to the cinema nowadays, it's like for a family of 5 and the rest.
Well,
I mean,
for a family of 5,
in the States, like, you know what I mean, it could be like $200, you know what I mean, for like a couple of movies or a couple of hours at the movies. You go bowling, nothing's cheaper, and I get it. Yeah, fans are going to have to pay 100, 200 quid for tickets. In America, you see it all the time at NFL games. So we are in a landscape where that is a concern.
Yes,
and that's when we spoke earlier about players getting £1 million quid a week or 500 grand a week, and it's kind of part of the reason it's becoming like that. And I'm not blaming it all on the players, because it takes two to tango, and we agreed to give the players all that money.
Yeah.
So that is a problem.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. You're listening to Max Scott and Darragh MacAnthony in for Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go.
I anticipate Arsenal to absolutely go again and just be as good as they've been this season. The key element for me on the title this year is Rodri. If Rodri's a Manchester City player throughout the whole course of the season, Manchester City will win the league.
That's a shouting off, that is, isn't it?
Do you disagree? If Manchester City lose Rodri and he goes to Real Madrid, they will not win the league.
I know what you're saying, but I look at it as well from because Anderson's coming, isn't he?
Yeah. So he's not Rodri.
I know he's not Rodri.
But he'll benefit from playing alongside him.
Yeah, that would happen.
But if you leave him on his own in there, I think you've got carnage.
I do know what you're saying, but I think there's more of a factor that Maresca might not be up for it either. You don't know yet.
I think he's up for it.
You reckon he's up for it?
I think he's up for it.
We'll see.
He knows that club. He's been at that club. He understands how that club works.
You're talking like a real Manchester City supporter.
He went to Chelsea. He did.
Are you Blackburn? You're a Blackburn fan, didn't you?
Yeah, we'll talk.
Hold on a minute.
We'll talk about their dismal summer in a minute.
What about the other teams?
Why are you doing this? Why are you deflecting?
Well, I'm just trying to say.
All I was doing was talking about the Premier League title race. That's all I was saying. And I was just saying that the big impact, the key piece of information for me is Rodri being a Man City player throughout the whole course of the season. And if he is, Manchester City will win the league.
Cool, but that's a shout.
Do you not think so?
So where was he last season?
Getting back from his ACL, mate. Do you not think so?
No, listen, mate.
So you're tipping Arsenal. You think so? You believe in what I said at the start of the show, that you believe that we're entering a dynasty time.
Yeah, but I don't. I wouldn't hang my hat on it.
Always a pleasure, not just on air, but in the ad breaks with Darragh MacAnthony. Fascinating stuff, talking just before the break around fan forums and the role that fans have, whether that's at Premier League Football Club or whether that's in the EFL. If you missed that, head back on the YouTube. I'm sure that'll be put out a little bit later on. But we're going to turn our attention now to the Premier League champions, Arsenal. Now, I don't want to go over what we did, Darragh, when we spoke about Liverpool and their pre-season, and understandably you're taking a more measured approach, saying you don't read too much into it. But I will ask the question for Arsenal. We lauded Arsenal for their defensive capabilities last season, and that's what won them the league. And I know that some people tried to unsuccessfully use that as a stick to beat Arsenal with talking about the quality of football. It's not entertaining. Well, none of the fans will care. The players, the manager, the bosses won't care because they won the league with a world-class defence.
All that matters.
However, in pre-season, they were beaten 3-1 by Betis. They were beaten 3-2 by Borussia Dortmund. I know it's just pre-season, but some concerns there. We know that Saliba is out for up to 5 months with a dreadful back injury. Thankfully, no surgery. But that is a concern. And Arsenal boss Mikel Arteta spoke to the media after that defeat against Borussia Dortmund at home yesterday about the defensive problems they're struggling with at the moment, especially with Saliba out.
I wouldn't go there just to put an isolated there. We conceded some poor goals today, in the way we competed especially. But that's a very collective responsibility. So we need to improve with the players that we have. We know that we lost a massive player, the same with Julian, some others that obviously 7 or 8 players that they weren't here today with us. So we know that the context is very, very particular. And there were so many other positive things. I mean, it could have been a very different result, to be fair. And I don't want to lose sight of that. But losing has to create pain. That's inevitable.
What do you make of Arsenal's sort of pre-season preparations and how they look heading into the new season with injuries to Saliba, Declan Rice and Bukayo Saka on their last legs for England, but playing valiantly through that nonetheless? Yeah. Do you think that they're going to, a bit like you said about Liverpool, it might take August, September for them to really find their form?
I think Saliba's a big loss but you look at the squad. I mean, they're covered in every area. They've got sometimes 3 players in some positions, and I think the recruitment over the last 4 or 5 years has been some of the best in football. And I saw this happening on my podcast about 3-4 years ago when they were doing the recruitment. I said Arsenal would start dominating. They get it right, they'll dominate because they're recruiting really well. I like their recruitment, and that's carried on. They've won that title now. Now, they won't be like Liverpool this year, where Liverpool last year was a disaster defending the title. And they'll sign players before the end of the window. They've just got Bruno, one of the best players in the Premier League. And we're worried about Arsenal.
No, well, look, I look at that and
Cry me a river.
There's something Sir Alexy about that. Going and buying one of the best midfielders, Newcastle's captain, bringing him in. But defensively, any concerns? Jurrien Timber, Mikel Arteta says is out for weeks. We know about Saliba. Ezri Konsa's been linked to Arsenal for a while. It seems that there's a gap in valuation.
They'll sign a centre-back, guaranteed. But they've still got some very good players and some great players in their academy as well. I mean, you look through that squad and I don't see one that's really stronger, bar maybe Man City when Man City are fully fit and up and running. So, I'm crying me a river for Arsenal's issues. There are no massive issues for me like some of the other clubs have got. And I think they'll go out and spend another probably 80 to 100 million on a couple of pieces before the end of the window. I would imagine one of those will be a good centre-back, whether it's Konsa or someone else.
We've spoken a lot about Vinicius Junior and maybe the disappointment from Arsenal's side about whether they're not got him. I seem to remember. I think you thought that was never going to happen. Yeah. So as football fans, we're so often wanting more. Yeah. And I know as a football fan I can be fickle. I constantly want more. But then actually I look and think, if I'm an Arsenal fan, Max Dowman could be like having a new player.
What a talent.
Because surely this has to be
how many players playing inside, by the way?
Yeah.
Tell me how many players are out there on that side where Dowman was playing on the right a lot of the time. Do you know what I mean? I mean, they are just stacked, caked out wide.
Do you back Dowman to have... I mean, I think it was his breakthrough season last season, but he was in and out.
Breakthrough.
Yeah, I know, it's absolutely mad. But do you think that this could be a season where he's regularly starting and making a regular difference?
I think he's a special talent. I think he's at the right club. I think Arteta will... they'll have a lot of games this year, and obviously, Champions League as usual. You'll see him more this season than last season. That kid is a star in the making, and he looks like he's made of the right stuff, and he's very exciting every time you watch him. So when you see players like him in Rio at Liverpool, the future's very bright for the English national team, right?
Without a doubt. I think that come January, Arsenal fans might be looking back at the Vinicius Junior story and thinking, we didn't need him because look at what Max Dowman's doing in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And I'm not comparing him to Vinicius Junior before people shoot me down. What I'm saying is that in Max Dowman, you have the potential of a world-class talent. And if you continue to nurture him and release the handbrake on the minutes and on the game time, and I know you're protecting him as a young player, but if you do want to play a slightly more attacking, entertaining brand of football, then Max Dowman is the man to hang your hat on because he's something special.
No, I love the look of him, but let's not kill the kid either and put too much on him at 15, 16. But they're stacked. I mean, I know everyone's worried about the left side, Martinelli, obviously Trossard's now gone and all those things, but I still look across their forward line and go, Arsenal could win the league again with what they've got, even with Saliba out for 5 months.
On the Dowman stuff, you're right to say, and with your background and your sort of owner's head on, you're right to say we need to look after him.
Yep.
But surely there has to come a point where you say this fella is so unbelievably good.
Yeah,
we've just got to let him go and look after him.
Yeah.
Follow him around.
You go Yamal Lamar at Barcelona in Spain at 16, 17. He was like dominating, in the World Cup, the Euros, and everything else. So yeah, you'd like to think so, but again, let's not burn him out too quickly. We saw it happen. Like Theo Walcott burst onto the scene, Oxlade-Chamberlain when he was very young. Do you know what I mean? And both those players didn't play past. Well, I know Oxlade-Chamberlain's still playing in Scotland. I think he is he right?
He was at Celtic last year.
Yeah, but obviously he had a lot of injuries in his career. Walcott had a lot of injuries late on. Is that reflection because they were put into the first team too quickly? He played too many games too young. Let's just take our time. The other thing is the expectation and pressure. And you don't want to kill a 15, 16-year-old. Next thing is he'll be called up by England. He'll be maybe the youngest player before Rooney. Do you know what I mean? To play for England and all that kind of stuff. So look, he's at the right place. I think Arteta is a really, really good manager for a young player like that. Like I would say Guardiola would have been a perfect player. Very protective. Guardiola did it with Phil Foden. You know what I mean? Now you got Arteta at Arsenal. Right now, I think Arsenal fans, like Liverpool fans, probably want a great centre-half. They want a bit of insurance there. That would be the most thing worrying Arsenal fans right now, because if they are going to go built on clean sheets again and a great defence to win the title again, because they're not going to change the way they play and suddenly start scoring 150 goals, the Arsenal fans will be going, centre-half, centre-half. Good centre-half.
Yeah, look, exciting times for Arsenal, particularly if there is, developments in those discussions regarding Ezri Konsa. But as for Max Dowman, incredibly excited to see how he does.
Great shout.
Next season. You're listening to Max Scott and Darragh MacAnthony in, of course, for Jim White and Simon Jordan. Up next, we're going to have a look at the EFL. It's not just about the Big Six. It's not just about the Premier League. Big look ahead to the EFL starting on talkSPORT later this week.
Look at Real Madrid. Go and look at this is the point that I think Gabby was making this morning. I know that he was making it regarding trophies and what have you, but look at the brand value.
180 million.
There you go. Right, that's how big that football club is.
Right, that's a lot.
That's how big that is as a worldwide entity. 180 million, and you're talking about him coming to a club that has 32 million followers on Instagram. Again, these are very basic metrics. Very basic metrics. But Vinicius Junior is in a completely different stratosphere. All this talk about him coming to Arsenal throughout the whole course of the summer has just been manipulation from an agent trying to get the dude a few more quid. That's what it is. He was never in a million years going to be an Arsenal player this summer. That's what it is. It's just manipulating the market. Let's see if I can get some more money for my guy. Yeah. Why would he come to Arsenal?
I said that was the agent talk. Just using Arsenal as a
leverage.
A tool.
Yeah. Arsenal are interested. Oh, right, wicked. Brilliant. Arsenal, champions of England. Right, well, let's use them. Yeah. Let's use them. Go back to the table with the Real Madrid lads. Forward. Yeah, he's coming out of contract. You know what I mean? He needs a few more zeros on this contract. Yeah. Okay. We're going to sign Yandy Mande. Let's put some pressure on you. No, don't worry about that. Vinny Jr. ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
Is it?
Come on. You can't leave. I just don't see leaving Real Madrid as a... You don't leave Real Madrid unless Real Madrid leaves you.
That's it.
That's it, mate.
Unless you come to the end of your time on your way, son.
Can't have a supermodel girlfriend and you leaving your supermodel girlfriend.
She leaves you.
For the dinner lady. Like, you know what I mean?
The dinner lady? You can't call Arsenal a dinner lady.
Well, it's love, innit? It's love.
talkSPORT News.
Good afternoon with the latest news headlines. I'm Emma Smith. 230 migrants have crossed the Channel in one boat overnight. The Home Office says it shows just how dangerous people smuggling gangs are. It beats the previous record of 165 people set last month. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage says Labour's failing to get a grip.
You can't smash the gangs. It's impossible. We can catch a gang leader. We can give them 20 years in prison. We can fine them millions of euros. It doesn't matter. The rewards are so great, somebody else pops up.
One of the UK's biggest theme parks has been forced to close at short notice. Chessington World of Adventures shut after a burst water main caused an outage. It comes as the UK's fifth heat wave of the year is building, with more parts of England expected to be declared in drought today. Temperatures could hit 36 degrees by Thursday. And it's hot, sunny and perfect weather for dropping the roof and feeling the wind in your hair. But sales of new convertible cars have fallen by almost 90% over the last 20 years. Former Top Gear presenter Richard Hammond reckons our weather is partly to blame.
We don't get much good weather, and when we do, well, if you look around towns and cities and in the countryside in the UK, when the weather's good, everybody runs out and gets sunburned.
talkSPORT Sports Headlines with Bostik. For workable, easy-to-apply mortar that tools easily, pros trust Bostik.
Jeff Bezos is close to becoming a Liverpool co-owner, and West Ham are keeping an eye on Jamie Vardy. Will has more at midday.
Good afternoon, Max Scott and Darragh MacAnthony here on talkSPORT. Thank you for joining us in for Jim White and Simon Jordan. And as you heard in the bulletin there, a consortium including the Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is closing on a deal to buy a roughly one-third stake in Liverpool. We'll get to that after the break, but it's time now to look ahead to the EFL action back on Friday. talkSPORT exclusive, Wolves against Blackburn in the Championship. Then on Saturday, the early kickoff, Bolton against Preston, live exclusively on talkSPORT before, and I've been waiting for this ever since the World Cup finished. It's Game Day Live with Adrian Durham, Dean Ashton and Lucy Ward. So we've got you covered across the EFL. It returns to action, the Championship, League One, League Two. We are going to be right across it, the home of the EFL. Let's start, Darragh, with West Ham. We spoken to Ben Jacobs earlier, who was talking about the potential for a Jamie Vardy deal. I want to ask the question because we saw him score an absolute belter at the weekend in the Carabao Cup against Pompey. Jared Bowen.
Yeah.
Is there an argument to suggest that he is the best player to ever play in the Championship? I mean, we've got the likes of Rafinha, Bellingham, but maybe obviously wasn't what he is now.
Did Janino play for Middlesbrough?
Yes, I think he probably did. But I mean, he's got to be up there, surely. What a coup just to keep him at the football.
Yeah, the best ever in the I struggle with that one. Fair play to him. Look, is obviously his roots, his missus, his kids, West Ham through and through, aren't they? So that's why he's staying. West Ham's a massive club, you know, particularly nowadays, a lot bigger than it was, say, 10, 15 years ago when they were in the Championship. So, but I can't give him that title as the biggest.
Okay. But one thing I think that you would appreciate about Jared Bowen is some of the themes that have been raising their heads in our conversations around sort of mentality in football and around some of the lost art of common sense and loyalty and being a professional, and the fact that Jared Bowen probably would you have taken him at Liverpool?
Of course, and I missed out on him back in the day when he was at Hereford. We usually get like young gems like that. When I first bought Peterborough, Hereford were like in League One before they went out of business and had to come back.
But the fact that there was a discussion about him being in the World Cup squad, some fans argue that he deserved the place despite the fact that West Ham got relegated. The fact that he stayed at West Ham, loyal to a club close to his family.
Brilliant.
I rate that. And he could have had far more money going to the Premier League.
Well, we're talking about Rashford. So I dare say that the boy probably had a slight wage drop. It was written in his contract playing in the Championship. Now, I'm not sure with the new deal, I think he signed with a release clause and stuff, whether it's still the same. But he's made sacrifices, because I dare say he could have gone to, don't take this the wrong way, West Ham fans, but a bigger club, this summer, and played probably for more money. So after the debate we just had earlier about Rashford and other players and whatever else, it is refreshing to see.
At the other end of the Championship, great story from League One last season, of course, is Lincoln City.
Brilliant.
And they start the season with dual managers. Chris Cohen, who, by the way, an absolute Forest legend, adored at the club, did great work as a staff member before he moved on, from the club. He's alongside Tom Shaw. Darragh, what are your thoughts on two managers?
Hate it. For me personally, by the way, not a slight on Lincoln, brilliantly well-run club. Liam does a great job there running it, the CEO. And what they did last year was they didn't it felt like they hadn't lost all season. So just lost their best player, but I'm sure they'd be busy at the end of the window. I'm not mad on two Chiefs. It's too much. I think you would do it. There always needs to be, there can only be one, in my opinion. And that's whether or not, like at my club, you got the CEO who runs the non-football side. Then you've obviously got the director of football over here with the manager. I just think when you got like split like that, it becomes problematic. Has it worked in the Champ and the Prem? What's the last like joint management team? I know lower down, like Salford had one years ago. They had like a pair.
Well, Lincoln have got history with the Cowley brothers, but not necessarily.
No, but Danny and Nicky, I know them. Danny was always the one.
Right.
Nicky's obviously very good at what he does, but Danny's the one.
I know you're an admirer of Lincoln and what they've done, but do you anticipate them struggling this season with two managers in the Championship?
I don't think it'll be because of the two managers. That's just their unique way of doing it. But obviously, like when Peter were in the Championship, Lincoln are going to be favourites to go down. So now they've got to book that trend, and they're probably going to have to spend. It's really, really difficult. It's the toughest league in the world, never mind the Premier League. So they're going to have to basically make a decision. Do we change our wage structure? Do we spend some money on transfers? And I know they, I think, made a couple of signings, and one was probably a record signing they made, but it's really tough, because in the back of your mind, you're thinking, if this goes wrong, I'm back in League One, and I could be carrying a massive wage bill that puts us in even bigger trouble in League One. So I empathise, I'm envious, but I empathise.
Okay, very balanced, Darren. I like it. Now, look, I'm surprised we've not spoken about this. I was on Drive with Andy Townsend. We had a big discussion about the new extended Championship playoffs.
Yep, love it.
So you voted it in?
Oh, God, yeah. I want it in League One. I want it in League Two. I think.
Is it a matter of time before it's extended?
Has to be. Has to be. I'm on the board now, and I'm a big proponent of we should have the same.
What
League
would prevent that from happening?
I guess the votes. But I know, having Peterborough finished 7th twice in the last 8-9 seasons in League One, I'm definitely top 8.
What do you say to maybe the traditionalists? And look, I'm sure you're a traditionalist, but you like this. But those fans that don't like the change, think that it maybe dilutes and weakens the competition. Sure. What's your argument in favour of it?
Keep an open mind. Let's try it and let's see how it goes. I think more competitive football at the end of the season is great. I've seen a lot of seasons in League One where your last couple of games, there's nothing to play for. Fans are feeling cheated. The intensity's not there in the game. I think that can change. And if you look statistically, probably from 11th down to 7th, going into the final weekends of the season, it's alive. And if it's top 8, that's a lot of football games that are going to be relevant. It's good for business. And I think it's good for fans. Because I certainly hate going to see friendlies.
Yep. On the topics of playoffs, we saw Southampton kicked out of them last year.
They'll have a point to
start
prove.
Their season against Watford. It's so important, isn't it? Well, obviously it's important that any club gets off to a good start, but with Tom Darragh and the pressure that he's been under, what do you make of that? This is a controversy that's been dragged on. He's under investigation.
Yeah, it's taken too long.
Yeah.
Me personally, I would have bombed him as owner after that all came out.
Why?
So because of what it did and what it cost us, and why did you do it? So I would have listen, I'm no angel. And I'm not perfect. The person I felt most sorry for was the intern. That was my kid. His name's probably destroyed forever.
Well, I believe he's been offered a full-time contract.
He should be for life.
The least
he should be. Because, like I said, if that was my kid, I'd be, let me tell you right now, it'd be like an army of lawyers going in there, because that's his name out there forever. So I didn't like it. I thought the punishment was harsh. That was before I joined the EFL board, by the way, when that, all the punishment came out. You've had previous, obviously, gone back to Leeds and Derby and a few years gone by. But if I were the owner after what happened and the effort the players put into to get to the final, he'd have been gone. He'd have been in the boot of the car and driven away from Peterborough.
I don't think you're alone in people that were surprised that didn't happen.
Look, fair play to the owner. He obviously sees something. He obviously thinks the guy's made a mistake. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. If that guy ends up banned for a long period of time, that's an even bigger problem. But here's the truth. Southampton are a massive football club. They're not going to be in the Championship for long. I don't care if they're minus 5 points. They're still going to be top 6 this season.
Let's talk about League One. Your club is a League One football club. Who are your favourites to go up in League One?
I'm not looking past Leicester. And then it could be any of 12 clubs that could basically get second and the final.
Peterborough included?
Oh, yeah. I know everyone's written us off. I know we had a crap season last year. But we will be busy in the market. I know what we've got in the building. I know what kind of manager I've got. So don't sleep on us. I know everyone wants to say we're going to be this and that, whatever else. But the last 5 seasons in League One, 3 of them we've been in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, don't suddenly think that our new normal is 18th in League One. It's not. It's not what we want.
Love it. Now, I want to talk about Wrexham Swansea.
I beg your pardon.
And Cardiff. I was working late last night, all right? Bear with me. They're all in the second tier of English football together for the first time in 40
Go Wales!
years.
Yep.
There's some chat in the office that this is, and I know we referenced it earlier, and that rightly Scottish fans are proud of Scottish football, and I don't want this to, this isn't me being a proponent of this.
Yeah. That's not what you said earlier.
But Scottish football needs to be better, right? I'm not saying this should happen, but it's a pub conversation. Everyone has it, so we have to have it.
Okay.
Is that not a good argument that including Scottish teams in what would be a revamped EFL would benefit? Could that benefit Scottish football?
Are we talking about 2 Scottish teams?
Well, we could talk about both. 2 Scottish teams, Celtic and Rangers joining, or the entire thing being incorporated.
You can't take Celtic and Rangers out of Scottish football. It would be the death of Scottish football. That can't happen. I don't know how long ago Newport, Cardiff, Swansea, Wrexham joined the EFL. I'm not good at my history. If that was 100 years ago or 120 years ago, whenever it might be. But to take 2 giants of football like Rangers and Celtic and go bang, you're now in the EFL and you're on your way to the Premier League. How many clubs in Scotland would go under? You would kill an industry. Now, is there an argument for an EFL or a league with a pyramid with all Scottish, English, Welsh teams in it? Maybe that's a different conversation when we're all in one massive league fighting to go to 2 Premier Leagues. Who knows?
Could they come into the cups and be introduced into the cup format and have...
I think people would see it as a slippery slope and there'd be a lot of outrage and you'd have a lot of problems and be met with a lot of resistance. So no, I think the only way you do it is you're all in and no one's in.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, before anyone gets on my back, I'm not a proponent of it, but I think you've got to...
You are.
No, I'm not. You've got to have the conversation there. In fact, but I do think it would be interesting to see how that would fit if you had all of them involved and had a pyramid system.
What you could do cleverly if you wanted to down the line, you could do, I love the EFL trophy, we've done really well. You could have, like, in the old days, you had an Anglo trophy where teams used to play teams from abroad in the EFL. Yeah. So you could have, and no one's going to love this if they're a player, more games. You could have basically the best of the lower 2 leagues in England playing first, second and third division in Scotland.
As a fan, that does excite me, the idea of having a cup competition where they're all involved.
The problem you'll have is the cost of travel.
Well, yeah. Look, I want to. We've got to go to a break, but I want to ask this. This is a great text. No name on it. Can you please ask Darragh whether he supports the 3 up, 3 down campaign for League 2?
Yeah, I didn't before, but I'm warming to it.
Because?
I didn't before because non-league went with the FA Cup and the sponsors about getting rid of replays, and I didn't love that. So that really irritated the life out of me. So, but I understand in recent years with Notts County, Wrexham, last year's race, that any of those teams that lost in the playoff final would have been the biggest injustice in the league history if Notts County and Rochdale last year didn't get promoted. So I do believe, yes, that it's something that's on the horizon to happen.
Okay, good stuff. Remember, all EFL games on the talkSPORT network. There's a ton of them this weekend. Starting off, on Saturday, you got the early kickoff, Bolton, Preston, and I might as well plug it. I'm going to be at Vicarage Road for Watford, Southampton, hosting that alongside Joe Shannon and former Newcastle midfielder Darren Ambrose. Loads of big fixtures. Burnley, West Ham, I'm hosting that. That's a big game in the Championship, exclusive on talkSPORT 2, the home of the EFL. But right now, you're listening to Max Scott and Darragh MacAnthony in for Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com.
Chris, what about Man U? I fancy United have a much better season. I think Michael deserves this job, and I do think they're going to be up there. I think they're going to push. I think they're going to be strong.
No, I do. I think I'm so happy to see Carragher's just thriving. I think, obviously, having played with him, you know what kind of character he is. He's that composed and he's intelligent, and he's obviously bringing that into one of the biggest jobs in world football. And I think the run they obviously had at the end of last season, obviously in 2026, I think they were like number one in points taken. So for him to be able to have a full pre-season, bring in whoever he likes in terms of players and just have that belief, I think there's no one better kind of, steering that ship really. And no, I'm excited to see what the season brings for them.
I think it's going to be an interesting season, Chris, all round, because so many new managers. You don't know what to expect. Liverpool, Chelsea, Spurs have spent big money as well. Whether they can try and get into that top four, and obviously the only one with a little bit of stability is probably Arsenal. But it's always hard to retain that title, isn't it?
100%. I think everyone's going to be hungrier than ever, and it is hard to kind of maintain that. You're now the golden ones that everyone wants to compete and to fight against. So I'm happy for United to be able to have that consistency from last season, because like you say, a lot of players are going to be coming, a lot of managerial changes. So I think United's got the perfect start at the minute, and hopefully hit the ground running.
Good afternoon. You're listening to White and Jordan. It's me, Max Scott, and Darragh MacAnthony in for those two. It's the final section of the show, and with a businessman and an owner like Darragh MacAnthony, it's time for any other business to close the show. There's been some breaking lines as we've been on air, and we're going to start with something that we've mentioned as it's happened. A consortium, including the Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, is closing in on a deal to buy a roughly 1/3 minority stake in your very own Liverpool Football Club. We understand the deal's close, waiting for FSG to confirm that via a statement. What do you make of that?
Good. Really interesting. Look, you got two very wealthy people buying in. Anytime your club is owned by people with those kind of deep pockets, you know that you're never going to struggle to pay your bills, right? Now, I don't know what they're hoping to achieve. I don't know if it's fun. Look, for a guy like him, spending $1 billion, $2 billion on acquiring a stake in Liverpool would be like me and you going and having a pint and spending 50 quid tonight. So who knows what they want. The one thing I'd question is if Amazon ever want to rival Sky for the TV rights deal for the Premier League, that could become an issue. where that might not be allowed because their main shareholder owns Liverpool.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. And I wonder if that changes because they're a minority owner or if he's...
No, I don't know. And I'm wondering in the deal, because again, you'd say, what's in it for minority owner? Do they have a pathway to owning the whole of Liverpool? So that'd be really interesting. But look, anytime you get mega wealthy people who end up owning your club, as long as their heart's in the right place and they want the right things, they want success, it's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah, fascinating.
I've got no problem with Bezos. I own some Amazon stock.
Yeah. Oh,
so,
dear.
Yeah, a little bit.
Very good. It'll be fascinating to see what that means for Liverpool potentially in upcoming transfer windows with, as Darragh says, deep pockets from Jeff Bezos and the people I'm sure that are involved in that deal. Another fascinating one, and we're going to talk more about this tomorrow because tomorrow is when the Netflix documentary about Jose Mourinho is released. And interestingly, they've teased a clip where Sir Alex Ferguson reveals that it was actually Jose Mourinho that was initially lined up to replace him when he left United. He then changed his mind, rejoined Chelsea. Mourinho says, when I left Real Madrid, I signed with Manchester United after Sir Alex Ferguson. Sir Alex Ferguson confirms Mourinho was offered a job. I sat him down and explained the situation, and as far as I was concerned, he was accepting. Then within hours, it changed.
All true.
All true.
Yeah.
You've heard this on the grapevine.
Yeah, obviously his son worked for me as my manager for many years, so I know a lot about hearing about different things at United at the time. But look, listen, Jose's blockbuster entertainment, so I'm going to watch that documentary.
Do you think that if Jose had taken over instead of Moisey, and this is no criticism of Moisey because I think he was probably dealt a really difficult hand with the way that things were ran behind the scenes. It was all on Fergie, and when he left, there was this black hole. But if someone like Mourinho, the special one, came in, do you think things could have turned out differently?
I think he'd have won a title or two, but I think then the drought would start. So you look, he went back to Chelsea, won a title, then he was bombed out. Had like a terrible second season defending the title, so he didn't last longer than 5 minutes. And obviously he then did end up at United. And he's still pretty much one of their most successful managers in the last, I think, 5-6 managers, Mourinho. Won a couple of trophies.
And he likes to remind people of that.
Well, it's the truth. I've always rated Jose, and I know the British press love hammering him for his lack of winning recently. So I really hope he wins the lot at Real Madrid and upsets a lot of them.
Do you think he will?
Yeah, I do. I think there's one more big party for him before he goes to become the Portugal manager. And I think he wants to go out at the top. So yeah, I do. I think they'll wrestle the title away from Barcelona this year.
Well, no doubt next season's going to be a lot more blockbuster with Mourinho in the seat, as opposed to Arbeloa, for example, who was just sort of filling in a difficult job with no.
Him and Simeone will be fun to watch on the sidelines when that derby game happens. You know what I mean? So, but look, he would have been great for United for a couple of years. But let's be honest with Jose, he kind of he'd wear out his welcome very quickly. You know, back even in his prime, he was a bit like that. So I'd imagine he was very hot to handle from those above, I imagine.
Yeah, without a doubt. Another sort of bit of transfer news that we're hearing doing the rounds is that Harry Kane is expected to extend his stay at Bayern Munich. Now, whilst that's not a surprise, he scored 61 goals in 51 games across all competitions. He's playing less football. He was, in better shape for England, for example.
Yeah.
Are you surprised?
And then they flogged him in every game and hardly subbed him, whereby he was so useless then when it mattered.
Are you surprised that Spurs, in their new age of Roberto De Zerbi sort of confidence and, spending big, that they've not had a sniff at Harry Kane?
What's a sniff? What would they have to get? Bayern Munich don't need money. So what are you going to pay to get their number 9 and probably the Ballon d'Or winner this year out the building? Even at 35 or 34, what are you going to have to pay? Spurs ain't going to pay 60, 70, give them their money back, are they? So I'm not shocked. I'm shocked he's extended. I always thought Kane would come back and play his final couple of years in the Premier League.
Try and break that share record.
I'm not sure he can. Do you know what I mean? Like break it, at that age or whatever else. How many is he short?
I don't know.
He'd probably need 3 or 4 seasons, to do that. But I did think he'd come back to Spurs. I thought he'd end his career there, you know what I mean? So, but let's see. He's one of them that's like, he's defying the odds. Father Time hasn't caught up with him. He's just had his most productive season. And I do think, he should win the Ballon d'Or. I do.
He's 47 goals short of Alan Shearer.
Okay.
If he came back to the Premier League next season, for example,
he could do it.
He could do it.
Yeah, if he comes back in 2 years, he'd need 4 seasons. At that age, he'd be doing 10 a year.
If he extends his stay, do you think that's it for him in the Premier League?
Yeah, he won't be breaking that record, So it's a shame, really. You know what I mean? Like, we should never have lost him. Premier League should never have lost Harry Kane. one of the most prolific goal scorers of our generation. Should never have lost him.
Darragh, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. We're
Loved it.
Back tomorrow for one more.
Absolutely. Let's do this.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. But up next, though, thank you for listening, by the way. Absolutely brilliant on your texts, on your calls. We'll be taking more of them tomorrow. Up next, it's H&J.
I totally got going for Vinny Jr., but I don't get going for just another one. And
not Barkla. There's lots of reports that
I don't see Barkla at the sort of levels that others do. Clearly,
145 million.
I don't see
having a laugh.
I don't see him at anything like that sort of money. I really don't. I think he is way behind Kvaratskhelia and Desiree Doué. Personally, I think they're far better players. I don't think he's got the end product in his game to warrant 140 odd million quid. No chance. And I don't think I'd swap Martinelli for him. I think I would.
For Barkla?
No, I'm honestly, because I think Martinelli knows this division, has proven himself now to be a valuable member of Arsenal's team, and I don't see that it's that much of a massive trade up for the sort of money that they need to invest in him.
Yeah, I mean, I have to disagree with you there, Andy. I think Martinelli, for me, I've just run out of a little bit of patience with him. 1 goal last year in the Premier League. He was good in the Champions League, but this has been an area that Arsenal have struggled with for a number of seasons, and I think it will be really, really disappointing for Arsenal not to address it in a bigger way than they've done already. Solis has shown some really good signs in pre-season.